Zoning Commission is composed of volunteer citizens appointed by the City Council. The Commission is the designated hearing body for a range of land use applications, including general plan amendments, rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the Commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council for final action. For conditional use permits, the Commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedure requirements to allow an impartial and efficient hearing, and all Commission meetings are open to the public under the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, City staff will give a presentation of the case, followed by a presentation from the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the Commission Chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information, clarification, or a rebuttal. The Commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant at the end of the dais. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already made by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation.
All right, good evening. Welcome everybody to tonight's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. My name is Clay Alsop. I'm chair of this commission. Let's begin tonight with a roll call. Commissioners, please indicate your presence after I call your name. Vice Chair Tony Fighter.
Present.
Secretary Linda Grice. Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Nelson.
Present.
Commissioner Brad Schaefer.
Present.
And Commissioner Josephine Waitman.
Present.
And chair's present. This is the final call for speaker request forms. If you'd like to address this commission tonight, please fill out a speaker request form. We have them available just outside the entrance to the chambers up the front and at the podium here. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. All items on consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. They are item 1C, disposition of absence, and 2C, minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is.
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have 3 items on our regular agenda tonight. Item 3R, Alora Vita PAD amendment. 4R, Trailhead minor general plan amendment, and 5R, the Trailhead PAD. Items 3R, 4R, and 5R will be presented as one report by staff, and we will have 3 separate motions tonight. Staff, please present your report.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Cody Gleason, Principal Planner with the City of Peoria. As the Chair referenced, there are 3 cases that we'll be covering with this staff report this evening. And again, we will have to have 3 separate actions at the end of that report. So the case number Z0802A3, again, is that amendment to the Alora Vita PCD. GPA 1704 is the minor general plan amendment, and then ultimately the rezoning request for the Trailhead planned area development Z17-27. The Trailhead development is a proposal by Rob Bassett of the Peterson Group and represented here tonight by Paul Gilbert. The site location is the northeast corner of 83rd Avenue and what you see labeled there as West Wing Parkway and Happy Valley Road. Ultimately north of Happy Valley Road, 83rd Avenue will be renamed to be West Wing Parkway. To the immediate south there, you'll see the development pattern that's occurred on the south side of Happy Valley, and we'll get into that as we progress through the presentation. The proposal that we have here is for a horizontal mixed-use development that would contain commercial, multifamily, as well as a religious facility on a site, basically in combination or in conjunction with each other, sharing access points, amenities, and ultimately design features. So to give a little bit more context in regards to the actual placement of these three applications that we're evaluating, the Alora Vita PCD boundary adjustment is merely to remove that area from the Alora Vita PCD, and you'll see on a slide in a second how that impact changes the makeup of the Alora Vita PCD. But you can see here shaded in blue, hopefully that's blue, I'm colorblind, but item 3R is that adjustment to the boundary of the PCD. Item 4R is the minor general plan amendment that was referenced. That is a change from traditional residential to mixed-use Main Street. And we'll get into how that ties into the rest of the development as we progress through. But again, that item 4R is just for that blue shaded area. So here we see the rezoning request area for the Trailhead PAD. This would be rezoning the site from a mixture of current zoning districts, one being Suburban Ranch 43 or SR 43, another General Agricultural or Ag, and the third is that Alora Vita PCD that currently exists on the northern portion of the site. All of those would then be rezoned within that dashed boundary that you see there to the Trailhead planned area development if ultimately approved by City Council. So to give you a little bit better context of the site, you can see here, and there's a subsequent slide that'll provide some indication again in regards to the portion being taken out of the Alora Vita PCD. But I just wanted to give you a picture here of the surrounding communities. Continuing on to the east, you have Terramar, which is a relative distance from the subject site. Immediately south, you have single-family subdivisions, as well as the southwest corner of 83rd and Happy Valley, which is 83rd Marketplace. Within there, there's a mixture of commercial and restaurant uses that are currently under development, some of which have already been developed. To the southwest is Black Mountain Center, which is an office complex that resides at the hard corner, the southwest corner of 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley. West of 83rd Avenue would be the remainder of Alora Vita. Same thing with north and east of this subject site. So let's go on to that subsequent slide that'll show that. So an important item to note is that the proposed case is an assemblage of various property ownerships. There's 5 property ownerships within the area that would ultimately be termed the Trailhead if approved by City Council. So with that, it's taken time in order to coordinate with those various property owners. The Peterson Group has led the effort to subsequently purchase a piece of state land that you'll see here indicated on the site with the shading over it. As I had referenced previously, that was a part, or is currently a part of the Alora Vita PCD. These requests would ultimately take that out of the Alora Vita PCD. And ultimately, you saw the prior number on the slide here. I can go back here a second. This square mile of Alora Vita is entitled for 2,000 single-family residential homes. The proposal would remove acreage from Alora Vita, as well as the commensurate residential density that would be associated with that area. So to take that 2,000 number down to 1,890, 110 unit reduction in the single family homes that would be allocated to that area. So here we have the existing zoning and the land use for the site. As I'd referenced, the general plan amendment is an attempt to continue the mixed-use Main Street land use designation that's on the southern portion of the site currently. So that southern piece is already designated mixed-use Main Street, and the goal of this general plan amendment would be to extend that north so that we have a cohesive development and you have a development pattern that lends itself to the uses interacting with each other, shared access points, and ultimately a more viable site. So again, you can see here the existing zoning districts. I won't belabor that, but the intent of it is to create that cohesive development that basically functions together rather than, if you take a look at the zoning map on the right-hand side of the screen, the independent zoning districts that currently lie over the site that would have to be developed in piecemeal. So the conceptual development plan you can see here on the site, the southwest portion of the site is commercial. The northern portion of the site would be multifamily, and then the eastern portion of the site would be that worship or office use that I had referenced. Again, the focus is the interdependency between those uses and their ability to interact with each other. You'll see on some subsequent slides improvements that are occurring with respect to roadway improvements. So there is a traffic light indicated there at 79th and Happy Valley. That does not currently exist today, and we'll get into that as a part of this development. So here you can see a site plan for the proposed development. Really the focus being that integrated access, the integral uses between each other, and the theming. The City of Peoria General Plan identifies mixed-use Main Street as an area where the uses have more of a promenade feel. There is a street presence along those main arterial connections, and there is a pedestrian scale. It calls for 1 to 3 story development and residential densities in excess of 20 dwelling units per acre. So trying to have that, I guess you could say, Kierland-esque feel to it so that as you proceed down, you have the opportunity to address various uses continuing through the development. As a part of this, the development would be seeking to implement various pedestrian connections, and a subsequent slide will show it a little bit better, but ultimately the development would propose constructing a regional trail connection that would lead from Happy Valley over to 83rd Avenue and provide the ability for future portions of Alora Vita. If you think back to the prior slide, the portions of single family that would abut this, the ability to connect into that trail system and ultimately not use an on-street network in order to reach a variety of goods and services. One of the items that you see here that is referenced within mixed-use Main Street is trying not to turn back-of-house operations on the adjacent uses. So in this case, what would have otherwise been the back of a grocery store where you have loading docks, trash enclosures, those sorts of necessary but aesthetically undesirable items, those are now internalized to the site as a result of the coordination between the uses. So here we have kind of the focal point for the commercial component of the development. Here is an amenity space and plaza that's intended to be a stop and enjoy area so that residents and customers for this area don't have to ultimately leave once they purchase the good that they've come for or they've received the service that they're looking for. They have the ability to go in there, recreate, gather, and ultimately potentially move on to one of the other uses in the area. Here's some renderings of that plaza and amenity area. Again, having a focus on cohesive design and ultimately the pedestrian environment. How do we get people to walk from one portion to the other? It's through providing shade, it's through providing seating. So those walking and focal pedestrian elements that are often enjoyed in multifamily and or residential settings, but we don't always see in a commercial setting. Here at the hard corner of the intersection is another theming point for the development, and in this regard, the commercial component of the development. Again, an item that we don't always see, and ultimately what that is intended to look like is represented in the renderings that you have here. So again, the ability for the pedestrian environment to kind of be prominent and featured rather than a focal point being vehicular access. Here is kind of a conceptual design palette for the center. So trying to tie in elements that we find in other adjacent centers, particularly the ones that I had referenced to the south, being 83rd Marketplace and Blackstone Center at the southwest corner of the intersection. So a lot of tie-in to aesthetic design in the area and a focus on cohesive development within this center itself. And as a result of that, you have design elements such as the patinaed metal that you see present throughout the center, the stacked stone that's incorporated on various elements, the brick that is utilized throughout. So trying to carry that theming, again, to make it a destination location so that it feels like one development. There's not a feeling that these came in at a separate time or they were done by separate parties, but an intentional thought to how they can interact with each other. So in looking at the commercial component of the use, again, it focuses on those outdoor and amenity spaces. Many of the sites that you see lining both 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley Road intend to incorporate outdoor dining areas so that there is a focus on, again, that destination or that place where you're not just going to purchase a good via your vehicle and leave. And then the limitations on uses, again, focus on the vitality of the center in trying to ensure that it is a commercial site that will not go dormant. It has the ability to succeed through time. As for the religious facility or office component, it's largely focused on having a religious facility on the site. However, there is an allowance for O1 uses such as office in an effort to, again, look to the long-term viability of the center. Should the church end up expanding, what can ultimately go in that site? So there was a conscious effort to try and program for the future. Here we have the multifamily component of the development. So again, the general plan mixed-use Main Street designation that's existing on the southern portion of the site and proposed for the northern portion calls for residential densities in excess of 20 dwelling units per acre, What we have proposed here with the multifamily component of this development is 24.4 dwelling units per acre, so above that minimum threshold that's identified within the general plan. And similarly to the commercial component, there's a heavy focus on movement of the pedestrian throughout that component of the center. In a subsequent slide, we'll see that regional trail connection that I had referenced, and then also the publicly accessible connections that route folks not only through the commercial component, but also for potential future residents of the multifamily, allow them easy and inviting access to their component of the development. Here you'll see the vehicular movements that are anticipated within the center, access to and from the center. There was, again, an intentional focus on providing access points that feed multiple components of the development. So as you can see on Happy Valley Road, the only full access movement from Happy Valley into the center feeds the religious portion of the development, the commercial portion, and the multifamily. The internal network allows you to get to those main spines or through hubs, but ultimately the intent is to focus the vehicular movements to those shared access points. The remainder of Happy Valley access is limited to right in, right out only, with the exception of, you can see the westernmost access point would be 3/4, so meaning right in, right out, left in, no left out. On 83rd Avenue, you see 2 right in, right out access points, and then even though there's not a 4th leg to it, ultimately what you see in the middle there would be a full access movement, so right in, right out, left in, left out. And the subsequent slide will show here the right-of-way improvements that are intended as a result of this center. So I'm gonna start in one spot and hopefully, if I don't get sidetracked, go in order and give a description of the improvements here. So at the southern leg of 83rd Avenue in Happy Valley, there is currently 1 through lane, 1 right lane, and 1 left turn lane. This development would be responsible for restriping in order to account for 2 through lanes south of Happy Valley, as well as 1 right turn lane. So those through lanes would then continue north of Happy Valley Road, ultimately tapering off at the north end of this development, so that in the future, the adjacent development to the north would be responsible for constructing the continuation of those 2 northbound through lanes. The other item that you see on here are medians within 83rd Avenue. So the intent of those medians is the completion of the half-street improvements, as well as traffic limitation. So in order to ensure the right-in, right-out access points onto 83rd Avenue, this development would be constructing medians on 83rd Avenue that would limit those access points so that we're better able to manage traffic flows onto 83rd Avenue. Continuing east on the screen, you'll see the indication of the light that I had referenced. So this development would also be providing a signal improvement that does not currently exist at 79th and Happy Valley. So currently today it is essentially progress when there is the ability. In the future, if the development is approved, the light would be constructed there in order to manage access to that intersection. Something also of note is at each access point into the development, there would be right turn decel lanes in order to move folks over in a safe manner prior to entering the development so that there's not any congestion or concern with folks coming behind them. Here you see the pedestrian network within the development. So a key item to note here is the line that you see bordering the north and east ends of the development. That is that regional trail that I had referenced. So adjacent to the multifamily portion, it would be 10-foot compacted DG. And then as you continue south and connect to the sidewalk on Happy Valley, that would turn to a 10-foot sidewalk. And again, the idea behind that is to provide that regional access for an off-street network so that we're not forcing residents of a nearby development to get in their car in order to go what would ultimately be a shorter distance if they were to walk. Within the commercial center, it feeds to obviously the arterial sidewalk network, but ultimately, again, the interdependence between the portions of the development feeding to the multifamily as well as the religious facility. Notice for these cases was provided in accordance with the City of Peoria requirements. Ultimately, for a site of this size, which is 45 acres, the development was noticed within a quarter mile of the site, as well as HOAs within 1 mile. In addition to that, the legal ad posted in the paper and a sign was posted on site. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting December 8th, 2021, within the West Wing HOA Community Center. There were approximately 50 participants or attendees at that meeting. That included everyone from city staff to the development team and a large number of city residents that were interested in the case. There were a couple of themes that came out of that neighborhood meeting, one of which being roadway improvements and access, one which you'll see noted in your letters that you received prior to tonight's meeting, the property values due to the multifamily, and the development timing, not only for the actual components of this development, but particularly for the right-of-way improvements, being the improvements to 83rd Avenue and the signal itself. So as of, this case has received a considerable amount of interest. As of 4:30 p.m. today, we received 40 letters, or I'm sorry, this slide is flip-flopped. So it's actually 98 letters of support, 40 letters of opposition. So we had to, just in order to redact and collate and get everything to everyone, we had to have a cutoff time of 4:30. Everything past that will be provided to City Council at the City Council hearing, as well as a part of their council packet. So nothing will be left behind. Ultimately, all of the correspondence will go to City Council. The school district, as with any development case, particularly those related to residential, the city encourages coordination with the school district, and we provide materials to the school district to review, and the school district has participated in the review in that respect. As far as the key findings for this case, as I had referenced, the zoning proposals do align with the general plan and the associated general plan amendment, land use designation of mixed-use Main Street, while at the same time incorporating goals and policies from the general plan that seek a balance of land uses, that seek for neighborhood vitality and interconnection between developments. As a result, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission take 3 separate actions. One would be recommend approval of case Z0802 A.3, make sure I don't mess up those case numbers, to the City Council, subject to the conditions identified within Exhibit 1 of that report. The second recommendation would be recommend approval of case GPA 1704 to City Council. And finally, item 3 being recommend approval of case Z17-27 to City Council, subject to the conditions of approval within Exhibit 1 of that staff report. And with that, does any commission members have any questions?
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate it. We do have a couple of questions. We'll start with Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the report. Very thorough. Appreciate it. You mentioned that the school district had participated in the review. I'm not clear, though. Did they take a position on this?
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Nelson, the school district did not provide a letter of correspondence with respect to this development.
Do you know if there's ongoing communication with the developer as far as?
I would have to defer
Concerns
to the developer with
to
respect
him?
to any further communication that they've had.
Okay. And then the second question I had regarding the place of worship. So is it worship, place of worship or office? Clarify that. So it could be either or if we're sure if we move forward on this, council approved it, there would be a place of worship there.
Chairman, Commissioner Nelson, so the idea is to provide flexibility. Ultimately, we do have a site plan in currently for the church, but ultimately, if for whatever reason they decided not to move forward, and or in the future, if the church expands to a point where that site does not fit them, it provides the ability for that building and that portion of the site to transition to another viable use that could interrelate with the rest of the development.
Okay. My mind goes to the Community Church of Joy and what a nightmare traffic situation that was when those services would get out. You know, we've as a city, not always planned real well when it comes to moving traffic in and out of these big developments. You know, we put it in and then we realize, hey, we should have made that road a little wider. This looks like a much wider road based on the drawings. I have not driven it recently. Any anticipated issues around moving good amounts of traffic in and out of that place of worship, the commercial center, multifamily?
Chairman, Commissioner Nelson, as far as the width of the road, I would defer to Chris Lemke, but I believe it's approximately the same as CCV as far as the width of the road, 67th Avenue and Happy Valley. So it's just a continuation of Happy Valley.
Is it? Okay. Chris, did you want to add anything to that?
Chair and Commission, I don't know the exact width of that road, but we designed it to accommodate the traffic of the site, knowing that there's a traffic signal there. And so it's probably would be similar to the main entry to CCV, where we recently installed the traffic signal about a year or two ago off of 67th Avenue. We're accommodating lanes coming in and accommodating the left turns and the through right movements. And so it's sufficient width for that. If this place of worship comes in and we start seeing some issues with circulation, that's when the traffic group will actually reach out to the church, have a discussion on how we could resolve some of the traffic issues. And we've been successful with other places of worship, having those type of discussions in numerous places, and this will be no different. We just don't know the magnitude of how much traffic this place will generate as far as a place of worship. It's not a big square footage, not compared to CCV. And so we don't anticipate a huge trip generation traffic issue associated with this place. But again, if it does become an issue, we have those discussions. And so what's some of the countermeasures? We have asked for off-duty police officers when the church egresses at their peak time. And I could recall 2 places that have actually done that, where it's in their best interest to get their patrons in and out of the church, and they use off-duty officers to help with the traffic. So that is a countermeasure that's on the table if we need to approach the church.
Great, thank you for that. If I may ask one more, police and fire, have they reviewed this? Any concerns from their perspective?
Chairman, Commissioner Nelson, as with any application that we receive, general plan amendment, rezoning, or site plan, we do route those to the fire department and the police department. They did not have comment on it.
No comment, okay. All right, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I make a statement? I just wanted to provide a little clarity to the earlier question about the school. So we do, just to direct your attention to the staff report. Obviously, the school district is a big part of the review of any case we have, and they certainly have been a big part of this case and part of the conversation. So they have indicated in the staff report that they have communicated to the city that they don't have any concerns with the proposed development. So what they looked at was the increment of change, right? It's already zoned for single-family housing there, and look at the increment of change that would be for multifamily housing. So in that respect, they have indicated to us, it's reflected in staff report, that they don't have a concern with the development.
Next, we'll have Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation, Mr. Gleason. A lot of information. First and foremost, I want to thank the residents that attended tonight and also the letters. I want you to know I read every single letter in here, both for and against, so thank you. Your voices are heard. Mr. Gleason, I do want to comment and clarify on those letters from the homeowners or residents. Did you say it was 98 in support and 40 opposed? Is that correct, Mr. Gleason?
Chairman, Commissioner Schaefer, that's correct. It's 98 in support and 40 in opposition. I apologize, that was flip-flopped on the slide there.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Next question, Mr. Gleason. In the packet on Exhibit 8, there's a handful of questions, and one talks about a shopping center south on 83rd and Deer Valley. Has the city looked into, or is there any concern, that Albertson Shopping Center? Over time, there's been decrease of volume in attendance of going into that shopping center. And is there any concern that if this development goes through, that community around there will drive north because it's new and shiny, right? And it looks like a great development. Will drive north, and then therefore we could have vacated shopping centers on 83rd and Deer Valley. Is there any concern, or has the city looked into that?
Chairman, Commissioner Schaefer, the use of the non-adjacent areas is not a direct evaluation item within the city's review. We try and look at a balance of uses, not only for specific sites, but across the city. So in that respect, we do try and evaluate if there is sufficient commercial within the area, if there's sufficient residential. So it's kind of a balancing act. With respect to the direct correlation between the two, there was no finite evaluation of that.
Thank you. It's an evaluation. I was just concerned because obviously we've seen some empty stores there in 83rd and Deer Valley and don't want to see more in our community, right? And then, Mr. Gleason, correct me if I'm wrong, during the presentation you talked about the multifamily. Did you say 20 units per acre? Is that correct, Mr. Gleason?
Chairman, Commissioner Schaefer, so the general plan for mixed-use Main Street calls for densities in excess of 20 dwelling units per acre. The proposed multifamily portion of the development is 24.4 dwelling units per acre, so it's in excess of that minimum threshold.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, Mr. Gleason, Mr. Hawkes, just one additional clarifying question. Commissioner Nelson was talking about PUSD. Has there been an impact done? So in theory, we have 110 homes, and we could be going to 336 apartment units. Is there a bigger impact potentially on PUSD going to 336 apartments versus 110 homes? Did we look at that? Has PUSD looked at that?
Chairman, Commissioner Schaefer, in discussions with the school district, they've identified that the apartment units are a lower generator in general of students. But again, there was no specific letter from the school district stating. So the net effect as far as dwelling units is an increase of 226 because of that 226 because of that reduction in the single family allowance.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think it's also important to point out when you look at the breakdown of the proposed development, it is predominantly 1 and 2 bedroom units. It's going to be 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, but over 90% of the units are going to be 1 and 2 bedroom. 8% of the units will be 3 bedroom. So most of these will be on the small side. And again, that led to the district kind of coming to a conclusion that it's in general, a smaller generator in terms of school kids.
Thanks, Mr. Hawkes. One last question, Mr. Chair, and then I have some questions for the applicant when that time comes. Mr. Gleason, you talked about that there's 5 ownerships in this corner, and does the city know if the development is not to go through that, in theory, would there be 5 other developments that are not cohesive, as you said, Mr. Gleason, and we could have different parcels and different developments?
Chairman, Commissioner Schaefer, there's no other development proposals at this time, so the city is unaware of any independent efforts. I would defer to the applicant as far as any intentions if this were to not be approved.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I do also want to elaborate a little bit too, and that's always the concern when you've got a mix of different property ownerships there, when you don't have them all at one assemblage where you can have a cohesive development, because you do have that ability to have individual property owners propose a project that's in line with the general plan or their zoning, and what could transpire is that you have separate little parcel developments that don't necessarily have any connection or any context with one another. And that's always the danger, and obviously the city has an interest in having more of a cohesive development.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Commissioner Hutchinson.
Thanks, Chair. Cody, in item 3R, they have, in the overall PCD, they have a site reserved that is looking for the Deer Valley District to site a high school on a 15-acre portion of that. And it's PUSD that's weighing in on in 5R, on their concern or lack thereof.
So Chairman, Commissioner Hutchinson, kind of a quirky part with Elora Vita is the northern square mile is within the Deer Valley Unified School District. The southern square mile is within Peoria Unified School District.
Oh, sorry. So that is, okay, so the northern you said is in Deer Valley, the southern's in PUSD.
That's correct. So the portion of Elora Vita that's impacted by this proposal is within the Peoria Unified School District. That was the purpose for communicating with Peoria Unified.
Okay. Yeah, that site for Deer Valley looks like it's in the southern square mile. I might be mistaken, though. Okay, thank you.
Chairman, Commissioner Hutchinson, an item of clarification. So there is a area identified within the Elora Vita PCD within the southern square mile for a school site, but it's for within the Peoria Unified School District. I would, defer to Mr. Hawkes if there's any further context he wants to add to that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hutchinson, as Cody indicated, he's correct. When you look at the southern portion of the Elora Vita, he's right. There is a 15-acre school site that's been identified. So really, it's a matter of the school district harnessing the resources to obtain the site and develop a school someday as that development builds out.
Okay.
It's part of the master plan.
Is that all, Commissioner Hutchinson? Oh, okay. Commissioner Waitman.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few clarifying questions. I think Commissioner Nelson already touched on this. So just to clarify, as we're moving forward on all of these items, right, I wanted to first touch on the worship facility or offices. So we will not know what the developer decides to choose. This is just, it can be either or. Because as far as revenue, offices would be different, right? What kind of offices would we be dealing with? I'm thinking about traffic, I'm thinking about parking, so they will not, the developer will not clarify that before we push this forward?
Chairman, Commissioner Waitman, there is a site plan in currently for the religious facility, so there is an intention to move forward with the religious facility. The office use allowance is merely to identify possibilities in the future.
All right, thank you, thank you. And then my second concern is just traffic. It definitely, I think this may be more of a question for our, our city, traffic engineering. I want to second what Commissioner Nelson said. It does seem like we kind of planned for, broader roads, and we planned for a median, we planned for different things. My only concern is when we're talking about a very, very large development, right? I think it's a beautiful proposal, but we're talking about shopping, we're talking about Sundays, weekends, churches, different things. Is this going to be a continuous conversation? Because we talked about possibly having a conversation with a church, but, would the city be heavily involved? Possibly some of the adaptive traffic control technology that we talked about, improving this as we go on. Is that something that we would do if we see that this is too bad? Because we do deal with traffic issues. Safety comes into play. How would we work instead of just having a conversation? What would happen if we found out? There's a lot of residents, I read a majority of the letters, opposition, a lot of homeowners are talking about traffic just being horrendous. So, what is it that the city, would the city be involved? Or is it just, this is the plan, this is what we're sticking with? Because improvements would have to be made if it doesn't work out as we planned, right?
Chairman, Commissioner Waitman, so I will start and then I'll provide the mic to Mr. Lemke to provide some additional context. So this site is looking to conduct roadway widening along 83rd Avenue, median improvements, and then improvements on the south leg of 83rd, south of Happy Valley, north of Happy Valley on 83rd, as well as the light at 79th Avenue and Happy Valley. So the intention is that this development would be making the improvements that would accommodate the intended traffic flows for the development. I'll defer the rest to Mr. Lemke.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Chair Alsop, Commissioners. And so we talked a little bit about, this is a big project and it's consolidating 5 or so properties. That gives us an opportunity for a transportation solution too, because we're looking at this as a whole. And so we mentioned that there's a lot of improvements that we're going to require from this developer to help with some of the traffic transportation issues out here. For example, 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley. The city's aware that residents that want to go northbound, they're heading northbound towards the signal, there's only one lane that continues past the intersection, north of the intersection, to continue on to West Wing. That's an issue. This development will help solve some of that, because what they're going to do is they're going to widen it to 2 lanes south of the intersection, and then they're going to widen adjacent to their site to carry those 2 lanes through. So now, all of a sudden, we improve the capacity at the intersection with a big development like this. If it was a smaller piecemeal development, we may not have the opportunity. And we keep on talking about the traffic signal. This is a traffic signal that the development's going to put in. This may not be possible if we're dealing with 5 separate entities. But think about the traffic signal. We have to work with the applicant to try to design the site to make the focal point of traffic to this traffic signal. There's no lefts out onto Happy Valley except at the traffic signal. We do that for safety. And then you mentioned about the adaptive system. Yes, technology, Peoria is all about technology. And Happy Valley is one of the corridors we'll be looking at for a future adaptive system, because we are adding another traffic signal here, and possibly another traffic signal further east of that location. And so we understand that motorists don't want to hit signal after signal after signal, so we are envisioning an adaptive technology to help provide better green spans is what they call it, so motorists who travel this corridor are more likely to hit a green light than a red light, because we group them together and push them along instead of not grouping them together, and periodically you get a car, and that's what we run into, and that's why a lot of motorists hit red light after red light. So technology is part of it too, but technology will happen with the traffic engineering group, but this project gives us opportunity to do the signals, to do the improvements, and look at more of a regional solution that is not just for this project, but it's for the residents and the motorists that are already out there. We're going to piggyback on that opportunity and do some of these improvements. And I think when it's all said and done, especially northbound on 83rd Avenue, people see a difference, because we're going to carry 2 northbound lanes through the intersection, and that's going to help us with capacity at that intersection. And so that happens with this project. So yeah, we've been working hard on this, on transportation solutions.
Perfect, thank you, thank you. I just really wanted to touch on that, as I know that the city's traffic engineering department has worked, and I remember being so blown away by some of the adaptive traffic control technology that we wanted to use, so thank you for clarifying. My last question is going to be about the trailhead, right? I was looking at, I think it was like the proposed, I think it was an exhibit too. This was I'm looking at, and this is my packet. We may not have a slide for it. When I seen the trailhead, I seen a flat structure. And this may be possibly for the developer. Will this be a completely flat structured trailhead? As we're looking at it now, it seems like there would be room for hiking, there's inclines. But when I was looking at this photograph, and of course it's a proposed photograph, it just seems like it was a flat structure, as if it would be a walk instead of a trailhead. I'm an avid hiker, and I do know in the letters of opposition, there were a lot of people that just enjoyed their surroundings. I'm not sure. Or maybe I have to ask this to the developer, but I seen a flat structure for the trailhead. Is there any clarification on that?
Chairman, Commissioner Waitman, are you referring to the amenity area?
Correct.
It is currently identified as a flat structure on the site plan. We're awaiting the amenity details through the site plan process, so we're coordinating with the applicant on that. As far as the trailhead, it is a naming effort due to the proximity of the potential future trailhead on the west side of 83rd Avenue. That trailhead is indicated within the Alora Vita PCD, and if you give me just a second, you can see it here kind of across 83rd Avenue from the subject site. There's a small indication with a different hatch pattern over it. It's probably too small to see, but that is a potential future trailhead once that component of Alora Vita develops.
Gotcha. And I'm looking at the site photos, but thank you for that clarification. Once again, I think it's wonderful. I know that this is part of, what the city is shooting for. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure those things were addressed. I want to get clarification, so I can't wait for the developer to go in a bit more detail. Thank you.
And Commissioner Fider.
Thank you. A couple quick technical questions. How far north is the applicant required to improve 83rd Avenue heading northbound? Is it just to their end of their northernmost property boundary?
Chairman, Commissioner Fider, I would defer to Chris Lemke.
Chair Alsop and Commissioners. So they will do their improvements adjacent to their site. Right at the northern limit of their site, they need to taper it back to existing. They're not required to go all the way to Joe Max. Future developments will continue that widening all the way up to Joe Max. But that taper is not an abrupt taper. There's certain criteria that you have to follow to make sure that you taper 2 lanes back down to 1. It's usually about 1,000 plus or minus feet to be able to do that type of taper. And so, but that would be the requirement.
Do you know what approximate distance is from the northern boundary of their property where this tapering would happen to Joe Max?
It's quite a bit of, do you have a bigger map? It's quite a bit of a distance, because you'll have a
Half
few
a mile,
collector roads.
3/4 a mile? 3/4?
I don't want to guess at it, but you can see the ratios. There's a bigger map that was a vicinity map earlier that had the collector roads in it. And you can see that this is a corner of the distance to get to Joe Max. It was so there's proposed a few collector roads before you even hit Joe Max.
Okay.
So it could be up to a mile, plus or minus, but, I'm just guessing at it right now.
Okay. And then another question, when the road's improved, I assume the bike lanes will be maintained along 83rd?
Absolutely. We're going to maintain the bike lanes. Those bike lanes were installed with a federal grant, and so any widening, we're going to maintain the bike lanes on 83rd Avenue.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Fider's an avid biker, so we can disregard his comments on the bike lanes. That's bias. And I believe that is, it's about a quarter mile. I run that road regularly, and the circle is 1.2, if you wanted to get really nitty-gritty on that. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. Certainly appreciate that. I just wanted to echo a couple of the comments I heard tonight. The land accumulation or consolidation, I think, is a great opportunity. I know there's going to be a lot of comments about the traffic and the impacts. And the city's ability to mitigate the traffic is significantly increased by having one developer in here. The city will have more opportunity to make public improvements with the developer as the project is larger. So if these were left as smaller piecemeal projects one by one and they came in over the years, we would have less ability to address those traffic impacts as they come in. So I appreciate everyone discussing those. Is the applicant here? Would they like to address the commission?
The applicant is both here and would like to address the commission. For your record, my name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street in Phoenix. I'm very honored to be here to represent what I consider this unique opportunity, both for the developer and for the city. This is really a terrific project. Pardon my modesty here. But a lot of work and effort has gone into this. I'm going to develop this more in my presentation, but this is our second run at it. This is a very challenging, difficult piece of property, both to assemble, to put together, and to bring this forward as a project. And it's a great tribute to Rob Bassett and Jim Peterson, the two developers who are here this evening, who have done that and put it together and didn't give up when we couldn't make it happen several years ago. So both Jim and Rob are here available to answer questions. I'm also assisted this evening by Adam Pruitt, who is a planner in my office and is also available to answer questions and to keep me honest. There are three applications this evening. Cody did a very thorough job of explaining those. I don't want to be redundant, but I do think I need to make a quick mention so we're all operating on the same predicate this evening. So we're here for a minor general plan amendment, a PCD amendment, and a rezoning. All three applications are integral to each other, and the project won't work if all three aren't approved. So slide 3. All right, let me just briefly discuss the minor general plan amendment is a little confusing. I want to clarify that somewhat. We're seeking a minor general plan amendment for approximately 26 acres at the northeast corner of 83rd and Happy Valley. From traditional residential, that's what it's designated now in the general plan, to mixed-use Main Street. All this does is extend the general plan designation to make it congruent with the rest of the general plan designation on the site. So this designation allows for a mix of commercial, including sit-down restaurants, a church, and residential uses that we'll develop more as later in the presentation. Slide 4, please. Now, the PCD amendment covers the exact same ground as the minor general plan amendment. It's the same piece of property, the same 26 acres. We need to do a PCD amendment because this acreage is now part of the Alora Vida project. And we need to amend that PCD to remove this property from the Alora Vida project so it can be incorporated in this project that is before you this evening. This land was or is owned by ASLD, the Arizona State Land Department. We were the successful bidder. and we are making payments on this property now, but we don't own it. It's still in the hands of ASLD. Then the third and final thing, slide 5, please. Well, I feel very powerful directing you to do my, thank you. I feel like I have my own personal Vanna White here this evening. All right, so the fourth, or the final amendment is the amendment for rezoning. And that's where we're seeking a PAD overall designation for the entire parcel. And that will change it from suburban ranch, SR 43, general agricultural, to the Trailhead planned area development. Next, slide 6, please. Now, you're going to love me. Normally, we go through the policies and the general plan goals. That is just fascinating stuff. And frankly, every time I need to go through it, it almost puts me asleep. I'm going to save some time this evening and I hope not naively that my brevity might be rewarded. But I'm not going to go over any of the goals or policies and summarize it by simply saying staff has given you a detailed analysis and we meet all of the goals and policies that are a prerequisite and predicate for your approving this application. You are required by state law to ensure that we meet these goals and policies. Staff has concluded we did. We agree with that conclusion, and I'm going to move on. So let's go to slide 8. Quick overview of the proposal. There are 3 major components. 1, a multifamily component indicated in the yellow there of about 36 units on 13.8 acres, and then 25 acres gross. We're using a gross figure. Cody used, I think, a net figure earlier, hence the differential in the acreage, but basically we're covering the same ground. So there'll be 25 acres of commercial, and that will produce about 136,000 square feet of leasable area. And then lastly is the 4.6 acre worship center, which is also, to promote the flexibility, is being designated as a potential office use. I want to clarify that right now. The pastor of the church is here. The church was a major property owner, and we had to basically get them to sell us their parcel that was located within the commercial 25 acres, and then work with them on the other parcel that they're now locating on. We thank them because this would not be possible but for the cooperation of the church in moving their location to this location. Their primary goal is to build a church. So that's what they're doing. I'm afraid, complicated the case somewhat by asking for the 01 dedication for office. It's just to give the church the flexibility, but that is their goal, is to build a church. And I want to clear up another question that came up earlier with the CCV. I may not have those initials correctly, Commissioner Nelson, when you talked about the other Church of Joy. This is a very, very small church, a very fraction of the acreage and magnitude of that other church. Also concerned about traffic, we have submitted a very thorough traffic report that's been reviewed by your traffic department, and the traffic report has unequivocally stated that the traffic that will be produced by this project, including the church, commercial, and multifamily, is easily handled with the existing roadway, coupled with the additional improvements that we will be adding as part of our obligation here this evening. So I want to segue over and talk about the need for the multifamily. I've been in this business for a long time. I'm not the sharpest tool in this shed, but I've been in the shed for a lot of years, and I've got to tell you that the current demand for housing is unlike anything I've ever seen in my 45-year career of doing zoning work. There is a desperate need for housing, not only in Peoria, but in the whole metro Phoenix area. I don't want to regale you with a lot of statistics, but let me just point out quickly that there are nearly 300 people that move to Arizona every day. Every day, 300 people. And this adds approximately 100,000 new residents last year alone. And that trend continues and is accelerated. And so we are seeing considerable strain on our housing supply. GlobalStreet.com, an online real estate data source that I'm fond of quoting, shows that the Phoenix metropolitan apartment demand has a shortfall, now this is valley-wide, of over 16,000 units so far, and it's getting worse. When you look at our property, the nearest multifamily development to this piece of property, the very nearest multifamily development, is more than 3 miles away. And then let's take a look at the 2 multifamily projects that are 3 miles away. How are they doing? They are fully occupied, and often an apartment complex will do what we call promotional items, a couple of months free rent or free cleaning of your carpet in 6 months and so on. These apartment complexes are so occupied that the owner of those apartment complexes is giving no promotional items whatsoever. So there's a great demand in this area for apartments. Our proposal basically recognizes this overwhelming demand for housing and housing choice, but goes one step further by creating a greater desirability and long-term success through integration with the commercial uses. That is the beauty of this project, and what gives it its strength and uniqueness is there is an integration here of the commercial and the multifamily. So we know that there have been a plethora of projects, of multifamily projects that are built alone, standalone. They're not integrated. This is a master plan in every sense of the word. And the integration with the commercial and the multifamily is what makes this project unique and so compelling. There's a very symbiotic relationship between the two. We'll be very candid. We could not build the apartments without the commercial, but reciprocally and importantly, we could not build the commercial without the apartments. The apartments are integral to this project, and that's what makes it a master plan. It also, as importantly as we reason together, is a requirement of your master plan, because the master plan is a mixed-use plan. If you don't have the residential, you don't have the mixed-use component. So the two feed off of each other, again, the symbiotic relationship. So it's required by the general plan. We meet that requirement. I'd like to now give a little more detail on the multifamily residential. To advance the goals of the general plan, I'm sorry, I'm on slide 9. Very good. I'm very disappointed that I don't have a color slide on this, but here you see the plan for the apartments. Integration of this residential component is paramount. In fact, there aren't enough rooftops in the area to service the commercial, let alone attract the desirable high-end restaurants that I'm going to spend some time on in the future in this presentation to talk about. The proposed multifamily residential use consists of 336 units, as Cody stated, It's on 13 acres. It's 24 units per acre. That satisfies the minimum density requirement of the general plan. We have to be above 20, so we meet it. And 24 is not a heavily dense multifamily complex. The units, and this is important, it's been said, pardon the repetition here, but the units are mostly 1 and 2 bedroom units. There will be 152 and 157, respectively, 1 and 2 bedroom. Now, there will only be 27 3-bedroom units. Why do you care? Why do I even bring that up? Schools have been brought up. It's an important issue. What we're doing here is we're getting, I shouldn't say getting rid of, we're replacing 110 single-family units with the amendment to the Alora Vita plan, and we are replacing those with the multifamily. And the multifamily, and we have the architect for the multifamily here, a developer here who can elaborate on this, but this multifamily doesn't produce any significant amount of school children, particularly with the emphasis on the 1 and 2 bedroom. So we are not adding to the burden of the schools. And I think that's verified and vindicated by the fact that the school district is not in opposition to this plan. The buildings will be 3 stories, and there will be covered parking and 32 garages for the residents. I want to talk a little bit about the height. Even though there are 3 stories in height, that'd be 37 feet approximately. The multifamily site is about 6 to 8 feet lower than 83rd Avenue. So in effect, as you come along 83rd Avenue, your view of the multifamily will be more analogous to the view of a 2-story rather than 3-story building. Again, and this is important, primary access will be through the commercial center at the new proposed signalized intersection at 79th Avenue. A secondary access will be provided at 83rd Avenue. And it's a little hard to see, but in the bottom part of the exhibit, you see the red arrows. That designates the access points for the multifamily. Again, our traffic study for the overall project is important here. It shows approximately 65% of the total weekday trips will be using Happy Valley Road. I want to emphasize that. 65% of the total weekday trips will be using Happy Valley Road. 20% will be going south on 83rd Avenue, and only 15% will be using West Wing Parkway. Slide 10, please. In addition to the obvious commercial retail amenities, I'd like to just briefly discuss the amenities on this very quality project. By the way, the developer is Heinz. Heinz is generally viewed as one of the truly quality multifamily developers in the valley. And I can speak from experience on that because I represent a good many of them. So in addition to the obvious commercial retail amenities, the residential proposal includes 15% open space and 31% landscaping. Both of these figures are above what is otherwise required by your ordinance. So we are exceeding your requirements both for open space and landscaping. Amenities include, no big deal here, but we have a very large, beautiful resort-style pool with a large courtyard and grills for outdoor recreation. We're providing a 10,000 square foot lobby with a state-of-the-art fitness center, a dog park, a bike storage area, and valet trash service. So this is going to be a very quality multifamily project. I'd like to talk just briefly about the unit amenities. Slide 11, please. We are incorporating the architectural elements from the commercial portion of the Trailhead. The residential buildings will have similar roof lines, plus shade, structures, colors, and building materials that will show integration between this project and the commercial. They will be integrated. Again, pardon the redundancy here. This is maybe getting a little bit annoying, but this is a true master plan. I can't emphasize that enough. We're providing stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, large walk-in closets, washers, dryers, balconies, and a complete smart home technology. Slide 12, please. The multifamily residential imagery, it's a little hard to see there, but this is intended to show and illustrate that the views into the residential component from West Wing Parkway are the pool and courtyard area and the view of the main entry. So it will be an appealing view. And remember, even though it's 3 stories, it's the equivalent of 2 because of the grade differential. All right, quickly moving to the commercial side. Next slide. I'm getting that look. I think I better move this along with a little more dispatch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the signal. This 25-acre portion of the Trailhead, this is the retail hub, obviously, and it includes a 63,000 square foot Safeway grocery store, 4 shops, 10 pad buildings, and a fuel center and convenience store. I want to emphasize that the fuel center and convenience store are operated by Safeway. Many of you are familiar with grocery stores that do this, so this isn't coming in Quick Trip or something of that nature. It's all coordinated, operated with the Safeway store. Other specific users cannot be named at this time. We've got some privacy issues that we need to respect, but we have represented to the city that we are going to provide sit-down quality restaurants for this project. We cannot, as of this evening, identify those restaurants. We can, however, point out 2 important facts that vindicate our sincerity in providing these restaurants. First of all, we are entering into a development agreement with the city of Peoria, and that development agreement mandates us to have 4 quality sit-down restaurants. Development agreement is a private contract between the developer and the city. I know you're familiar with that. That again vindicates and underscores our commitment. We're going to provide quality restaurants. Let me tell you who we've been talking to so far. And every one of these users that I'm about to name are familiar with the trade area and have an interest in locating their restaurants in this location. They are OSO, the Fox Concepts, LGO, Le Grand Orange, and Buck and Ryder, State 48. My Italian is horrible, but Maggiori's Concepts, hope I didn't slaughter that, but you'll recognize the restaurants, Sicilian Butcher, Mexicano, and Hash Kitchen. So those are who we're talking to right now, and we don't have anyone signed up yet, but I think you can see our commitment. We're going to honor it, and we're bound by it with the requirement in the development agreement. There are also other interested parties who represent high-end sit-down restaurants that we are also in discussion with. All of these restaurant users are well-known and are sophisticated and keenly aware of the trade area and are showing some real interest in locating on our site. Quickly, this hasn't been covered. I think it needs to be said. The city's C2 intermediate commercial zoning districts are basically the key from hence that control our uses for the PAD. But we've also agreed to some other restrictions. We are limiting the fast food uses. The fast food uses, we have restricted ourselves so they will not be, if you go to the corner of that commercial in the triangle there, right at the intersection of 83rd and Happy Valley, those pads along there, we are restricted. They will not be fast food operations. So we've restricted ourselves, so we've integrated fast food, and there will be some fast food, not much, but some. And they will be in the pads more on the interior, so they will not be seen as you as immediately adjacent to the edge of the property as you travel along. They are clearly not the dominant feature of this development. We have also limited that there can only be one fuel station. And there's an extensive list of prohibited uses that we are agreeing to with the city. Just quickly, I'll go through some of those: adult uses, pawn shops, non-chartered financial institutions such as check cashing, donation centers, mini storage, and RV and boat facilities. Connectivity is an important part of what makes this trailhead unique in its focus on the interactions with the space and our many patrons. Slide 14. The green arrows here, and this is an important exhibit. It was touched on briefly, but this gives you a lot more detail, and it's, I think, one of the features that is a significant enhancement for this development. The green arrows show the extensive pedestrian connections that range from perimeter sidewalks to internal paths, encourage pedestrian activity, much of which is focused on the centralized courtyard. The centralized courtyard is in green. Now, I want to talk about this because this, I think, is one of the really nice features of this plan and this whole commercial product here. This is a centralized courtyard where the users can enjoy seating, shade, lighted patios for evening activities, open spaces for games and other public events. But our project is called the Trailhead, and one of the key things that will be included in this courtyard is a hiking amenity area. So, being in close proximity to local hiking, it makes sense that we provide amenities such as water fountains, bottle fillers, even a dog watering station, and basically whatever you need to get ready to go on a hike, we've got supplied there and it will be available, which is, I think, a really nifty item. The slide 15, please. All right. I'm coming down home stretch. Livability and placemaking are important here, and the Trailhead is for a myriad of users ranging from those needing easily accessible goods and services for those that want to stay a while, as is evident from the livability and placemaking exhibit here. Next slide. Thematic elements. The Trailhead is a mixed-use development in every sense of the word, and therefore it needs to have consistency in design and thematic elements. This, I think, illustrates that very well. The coordination between the color and the design of the multifamily and the retail, I think, are vindicated by this graphic that shows very effectively the thematic elements. Slide 17, the architecture will balance modern forms with rustic materials. I apologize, that's a little small. But the buildings within the trail have four-sided architecture that will incorporate materials such as steel, stone, stucco, and glass with varying roof lines and integrated shade elements. I'm going to skip 18 and go to 19. Just real quickly on the worship site, my understanding is too that the church has submitted plans for a church. And again, the pastor is here and is available to answer any questions if you wish to have him come up and give you more details. We're provided for a 15,000 square foot non-denominational worship center. It's not going to be anywhere near what a Church of Joy would have. We have also asked for one office to give the church a little flexibility to maybe combine office and church, or in the future, if the church doesn't work out, they could maybe segue over to an office use. So, in conclusion, first of all, I want to thank the staff for their support. We have worked very closely with them for over 1.5 years on this project. They've given us some valuable feedback. The project is a better project because of their feedback, and we thank them for it. And that is not adulation, that's a sincere expression of gratitude, Chris and Cody, for your help. But we also want to thank the more than 100 supporters that have given letters in support. And Mr. Chairman, if I may take the liberty, I'd like the many that are here in support to stand this evening so you get an idea. So those that are here in support, please stand. Mr. Peterson, I think you're in support, so you may stand to join our group. So we've got a lot of supporters, and that's, again, vindicated by the over 100 expressions of support you have on file, and there's many more coming. Also, I've got to say a word about what we've gone through to put this parcel together. The coordination has been challenging. There are 6, count them, 6 different property owners. The point has been made, I think, very convincingly by your staff, that if you're going to control traffic, if you're going to do the things that we want done here, you've got to have a master plan for the whole area. Otherwise, it will be developed as 6 different parcels. It won't be integrated, it won't be coordinated, and it won't have all the advantages that we have here. Assembling 6 parcels was no easy undertaking. We started this several years ago and had to give up. We couldn't get it done. But we stuck with it. We're back now for the second run, and it's a Herculean task that Rob Bassett and Jim Peterson have performed to assemble this so it can be developed as a true master plan with all the inherent advantages that a master plan provides. Third, I just want to point out, I know there's opposition to the multifamily, but this multifamily is a crucial, integral part of this plan. It doesn't work without it. And there is a real need. I just will mention again, the nearest multifamily is more than 3 miles away. It's fully occupied. There's a need for this, and this plan integrates the retail and the multifamily, I think, in a very cohesive and commendable way. So lastly, the Trailhead is the type of mixed-use development that has the city looking with favor on. We're here with staff recommendation of approval. We're offering an integrated mix of residential and commercial uses with a strong sense of community and internal, external connections. Approving this application before you tonight will provide the city with a unique opportunity to have a true master plan. Denying this case this evening will basically put the city back in the position of having to deal with 6 different parcels, 6 different owners and the lack of a cohesive, coordinated, integrated project. Thank you for your attention. Be happy to answer. Happy may be too strong, but I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. And everybody that stood up in voice of support, thank you for doing that. You will have the opportunity in support or in opposition to speak, but you certainly are not required. Before we open up to the public hearing, we'll hear some comments from the commissioners. Commissioner Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair, and great presentation, Paul. This is, I think, the second or third that I've seen you in, and you're quite a presenter.
Well, thank you for coming back.
You're welcome. I got really 3 points to bring forward about this project that are really of a grave concern. The first one, I'm less concerned about the multifamily aspect of it. One of the benefits of multifamily housing is supposed to be affordability, and all of the amenities and all of the luxury professed in this project seems to be putting that argument aside. We have a severe lack of, yes, multifamily housing, but affordable multifamily housing for, say, young adults venturing out on their own and trying to find their first place. This isn't it. My second concern, and you brought up under the general plan, is economic prosperity that this would bring. You know, again, I'm less excited about the minimum wage retail jobs that places like this generate, and I'm more concerned about the skilled trades that build these buildings and make a decent wage and a decent living. Where are we getting those workers? Are we bringing them in from the local community through using our local labor groups and our local workforce boards? There's a lot of construction that's going to happen with this project as the developers considering not the companies that hire them, but the actual people turning a wrench on these jobs. Where are they coming from? And are they able to afford to live in the community that they're building? That's been a big topic of conversation for the last few projects we've talked about. And then finally, I know multifamily housing doesn't have as much of an impact on schools. Sunrise Mountain High School is the closest high school. There are 200 students over capacity currently, and Liberty High School is almost 500 students over capacity, and they're building temporary units on the, temporary modular units onto the sides of the school to accommodate overcrowding. I know this is not a huge impact, and it probably shouldn't be such a point of a discussion, but it contributes. It all contributes to extreme overcrowding. And I know it's not the city's responsibility. It's not a responsibility of us commissioners, and the developers are not responsible, and the state, quite frankly, doesn't give a crap. So somebody somewhere along the way has to care. And these communities are building up on the north part of our city, and I still don't see a school. No, I like this. I like the concept. I love the walkability, the trails, the look of it all. I think it fits the community, but I have serious concerns about where we're heading. So, thanks.
May I, Mr. Chairman, may I briefly address those? First of all, let me talk about affordability. Frankly, I waffled in my mind on how to present this case because I wanted to demonstrate empirically that the apartments were quality apartments so that you weren't getting schlock apartments. I apparently oversold it. So I apologize to my client for having done that. But I also, that these are basically, and we had a long talk with Heinz, the developer, about this very subject just yesterday. And basically, these are mid-range apartments. They're not affordable. I mean, they're not, I'm not going to claim that, but they're apartments that are mid-range. So there is the opportunity for residents to live, work in the area. So I think we're going to satisfy your concern there. You raise a darn good point about hiring local labor groups. I cannot represent to you who we're going to hire to build these yet because we haven't hired a contractor. We're just holding our breath hoping to get through the zoning entitlement. But I think your comment's well taken, and Mr. Peterson, you correct me if I overstate here in answering this question, But we're willing to take a look at trying to give some preferences to hiring local people on this job. And that's a commitment, and I'm not being pulled down away from the stand, so my client apparently doesn't disagree with that statement. And then the schools, I mean, this is just a hard one. But remember, we are eliminating 110 homes. So we're helping reduce the demand on the schools, and we're replacing it with a use that doesn't impact the schools. But most importantly, and the bottom line is, the schools are not in opposition to this case. So thank you for letting me respond.
Is that all, Commissioner Hutchinson? Is that all, Commissioner? I had a comment on the school, and I'll go to the other commissioners' comments. Paul, how many acres is coming from State Land Department?
26 acres.
26 acres. Land is as expensive as probably anybody in this room has ever seen. 100% of the proceeds from the land sales from the State Land Department go to the schools. There is a significant benefit to the public schools from state land purchases. So I think this project will have a significant benefit to the schools. I can't claim it's pure unified. It's set by state statute where those funds go, but there will be a significant amount of funds that will be going to the schools through the State Land Department.
A very good point. May I be so presumptuous to supplement that? As you well know, when you go bid on state land, there's a minimum bid. You start there. Well, we came prepared hoping to pay that. We paid double what the minimum bid was. So we really increased the school's coffers with this project, but thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Gilbert, great presentation. Always a pleasure to have you here in the chamber. A couple things. First and foremost, thank you for sticking your neck out there and willing to hire local contractors. We really appreciate that. And the other one is have to give some credit to your client. I'm looking at the restricted uses. That tells me that your client listened to the community and says, okay, they don't need these services within this community, but what they do need is these services like the high-end restaurants, because we're underserved in that. You made a comment, said that this project wouldn't be successful without the multifamily.
Correct.
I have to respectfully disagree with that. And a prime example is you have the Four Corners. The Four Corners did not have multifamily up till about probably 2 years ago. And the Four Corners just down the road, just west of this project, has flourished over, I don't know, 6, 7 years, even during a pandemic. And it wasn't until recently that they had multifamily back behind the Aldis and the mountainside. So the reason I say that is this community being underserved with the high-end retail and the restaurants. It's underserved, and those businesses will do really well in this development by all means. But the reason I say that is going forward, like the typical models where you need a multifamily is probably not necessary in this type of community. You know, when you have a community, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the data is within a 1 to 5 mile radius, your median household income is what, 160,000. So there's the discretionary funds to go to those high-end restaurants and sales. And what I like about bringing in those high-end restaurants and retail is that generates revenue for the city as well, because we've had flat tax for quite a period of time and we'd like to keep it that way. So that's good as well.
Good.
Oh, yes, Miss.
No, I'm agreeing with your latter point.
And then I guess one last thing. I really like that your client is, I know this is a lot of hard work over multiple years, and bringing in 6 owners to come up with a project like this, I have to give them a lot of credit, because that's, this community really needs the master plan projects like what you're presenting. And if this doesn't go through, it's kind of the lesser of two evils, right? If this doesn't go through, then the city's gonna be dealing with 6 different developers, owners. You could have fast food restaurants, could have Circle K's and stuff like that, which we have on other corners. So I like the cohesiveness and the master plan behind this, because that's what the community needs.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Waitman.
Thank you, Chair. I do not want to be redundant in this aspect, but truthfully, I want to piggyback off of my fellow commissioner. I think you stated correctly, and you did wonderful in the presentation. I mean, if you were selling it, you sold it, okay? But truthfully, you know, when we're talking about mid-range, and then also just my background and expertise in property management and staffing in there, this is over 250 units. We kind of seen the structure. I looked at all of the amenities. This may be a little bit preterm, but truthfully, I don't believe the type of facility that we've seen, that it's going to be mid-range. I don't think we would be able to get below 2,100 possibly for a one-bedroom. So is there some type of range that they're looking at as far as the renting of these units go? Because as my fellow commissioner stated, I'm a young professional, right? And, you know, thankfully, me and my husband, we have a home, we have a house, but, you know, that's not where our economy is going to where young professionals are moving out, getting houses, and this is how it works. So when I see all these amenities, when I see all these luxury eateries, it's a very attractive place, but are we going to be able to afford it? Is there a price range that we're shooting for?
Okay, the answer is no, and I just need to be candid with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I anticipated this question, and when we spoke with Heinz, who's the developer, yesterday, we put this very question to him, and I'm sorry I'm being a bit redundant, but he said these units are mid-range on price. The reason that we can't quote you a price, and pardon me for sharing a recent embarrassment, I quoted a price in front of the Goodyear Town Council for some apartments, only to find out the next day that I was off by about 25%. And my client told me, he said, the cost of construction and materials and equipment and so on is so precipitously on the increase that it's very difficult to price these units at this juncture until we have those costs in. But again, Heinz knows that this needs to be a mid-priced apartment complex, and they're committed to do that, and they've authorized me to say that. So that's all I can tell you.
Thank you, and thank you
Surely.
for your transparency. I do want to commend the developers, all the partners that came together, because perseverance is a thing here, right? I mean, this takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of people to have their hand in the pot. Secondly, I have a question, and I may be jumping the gun. Will the pastor come before us, or is he able to address any questions?
He is here, and I'm sure he'd be pleased to speak to you. Would
Okay.
you like him to come forward, Mr. Chairman?
If I can, I just
Sure.
have a few questions.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Don't be scared. I won't chop your head off. I just have a few questions. The reason being why, obviously, it's amazing to have my fellow commissioners, a lot of different expertise here. And the reason I want to speak directly in regards to the worship facility is because this is one of my expertise, right? My husband and I actually have a church in South Phoenix, but we primarily focus on urban ministry, right? Now we're doing different things and we're broadening out. The fact of the matter is, I also know that when it comes to sustainability of churches, for sure with the pandemic that we faced, and you know, now hearing that, oh, it may be a worship facility, it may be offices, the church would be a large part of the community, and I thought this was a beautiful part of the presentation. So my question for you is, as the plan is for this non-denominational worship facility to be there, you know, what is the plan as far as sustainability? COVID has came. Unlike this church, my husband and I are part of a denomination which gives a lot of support, financial support and different things. But as far as a sustainability plan, you know, maybe you can give me some of your experience. My husband is a reverend doctor, got a doctorate in ministry, and even we struggled with funding. A lot of religious nonprofits, they will not, it's hard to get these grants, it's hard to sustain. So what is a sustainable, you know, plan that you all have to where we won't have, I guess, just offices? I don't see offices here. You know, what would we have offices for, and what kind of offices would these be? I think this would be great, but I think sustainability and long-term a church being there. That is my question. How is this going to be? I think it's wonderful, and I think it'll do well in this area, but I just want to see what plan you may have.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
I appreciate Jim Peterson. He contacted us the end of 2015 when we first sat down and talked about this project. And from the very beginning, what you just brought up has always been a part of the discussion. How do we do this project? How do we do this together? And how is this sustainable for the church? Because we are a small, non-denominational church. We've been in the community for 18 years. We have been renting schools for 18 years. And right now, we meet in Christ Bible Church on Saturday nights because of COVID, we lost our school space. And so, yeah, we're a small church who's been through some hard times, but yet we do see a sustainability in this project. The plan is to build this and to be debt-free. And so that is our goal right now. We are also designing our floor plan to be able to rent out to a preschool. And so I know that hasn't been a part of the discussion here, but we have room for preschool students, and I know that that is a huge need in the community. And so that will be part of our sustainability as well.
Okay. I like that idea, and just as you were talking, I thought maybe, the best of both worlds could combine, because most of the churches do need offices, they do need different things. One thing that my husband, Reverend Dr. Staccato K. Powell II, has seen is throughout the COVID pandemic, because most of the churches sustain off of tithing and off of different things. When there's no people or when pandemics take place, lights, different things have to get paid. You're there. But we have seen that renting out does work. So I just hope that there's a support of a team so that we can see this. I think it'd be nice for the community to have. I do think that the surrounding community possibly would love to have a church very close to home and maybe even can walk, right? Trailhead, do things with the family.
We hope so.
I mean, it would
We
be
hope so.
wonderful. But yeah, sustainability for me is just a concern, not to where now we have empty space. Now we don't know what will be their offices, whatever it may be. So I just hope that you guys have a support of a team.
So if I may, our plan is to build the church and to do so as soon as possible. And so we don't plan on vacating. We're not building it to vacate. We're building it to sustain and to have an impact in the community.
Yeah, and best of luck to you. I know it's hard to be a leader at this time, but, I think that if you stick with it, like the perseverance of these developers, I think it will work. But I did want to have some transparent questions because the worship facility was one of the things that drew my attention. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Couple of comments. I hope people bear with me here for a minute. I'm going to address the big elephant in the room every one of these meetings. I don't know that I've ever talked about from the stand here. That's NIMBYism. It stands for not in my backyard. And it's becoming a frequent issue. We've talked a lot about affordability, and that is exacerbating the issue, so much so. A lot of people in here may not realize state legislature considered a bill to do housing by right, which means a multifamily project could go virtually anywhere they wanted. So there are considerations we need to keep in mind as municipalities in allowing diverse housing within our cities, because there are repercussions from other agencies, federal government, and even state legislature. So what we have here is a great opportunity to provide more diverse housing, I think in a very reasonable way. I appreciate the developer doing that. Additionally, something that's very important to me is economic development. TSMC, the semiconductor factory off of I-17, I'm sure everybody's seen it. A huge opportunity for Phoenix and Peoria. Certainly, there are going to be more companies coming in. I see a lot of that through my work. And the first thing that those companies look for is availability of housing for their employees. That is why that site was selected, amongst other reasons. But there is more diverse housing over on the 17 than there is off of 303. I think this is a great opportunity to provide those locates to find a great place to set their companies in Peoria. Before we go to public comments, we're going to take a 5 to 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and give everybody the opportunity to have their voices heard. Thank you. We're going to get started in a minute here. All right, thank you. Start back up. We are ready for the public comments. Just want to make a brief statement. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker request form and hand it to the planning assistant here. You may still do that. I have quite a few in my hand here. What I will do is I will read off your name. If you no longer wish to speak, you can just say, I no longer wish to speak from your seat. That's fine. If you do, you may come up and you will have 3 minutes. Please be respectful of that 3 minutes. We have a lot of people here tonight, and that'll make sure everyone gets a fair opportunity to communicate. When you come up to the dais here, please state your name and address for the record. And please be mindful of repeating statements. Feel free to say, I support what everyone, person A or B said, to be less redundant. And then we do ask that you refrain from cheering or applause or anything that would disrupt the meeting. So I understand, and Paul had everyone in support stand up. Thank you for being here. If you wish to speak, you may do so, but you also don't have to voice your support. That's been accounted for. So we'll start first, and forgive me with these names. I'm going to do my best. Benita Howe, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, esteemed committee, and thanks for everybody here that are my neighbors and in our community. My name is Benita Howe. I'm a resident of West Wing Mountain. You wanted my address, 8367 West Antelope. That's where I live. The original purpose and design of the Alavita Space promises mountain views, recreational corridors, and expanded public preserve throughout West Wing and East Wing Mountain. It also calls out that there are washes that are protected of bearing construction except where necessary for roads, utilities, and trail crossing. What's proposed is to change the land use from estates and low-density residential, as well as park and open spaces, to community commercial to allow for 20 acres commercial shopping centers and religious facilities. This plan was approved in 2011 by both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council, and it accounted for 362.8 acres of open space with no less than 18 acres dedicated to the City of Peoria's open space. The original plan for the north section encompasses 83rd and Happy Valley, and it accounts for 11 acres of neighborhood parks, 2 mini parks, and 15 acres for a school. Parks and open spaces for the north lot have about 113 acres that mingle among the 1,675 lots that are on this 600 acres. That's the original vision. When people like me who moved in and bought within West Wing, and we looked and said, as a part of this community, where is it going? The zoning proposal, based on the applicant wording, transitions natural area parks, open spaces that homeowners really do enjoy. It does change a community. The 2011 plan supports that kind of space that allows all of us to get a little bit of off-grid. And if you drive through that area today, what you will see, because I see it all the time, is people out in that non-concrete, grass area where they're walking their dogs, they're going for runs and walks and biking on dirt rather than pavement. And these planned areas continue the tradition where people capture photos to celebrate important life. All the time in our area, you'll be out in the wash and are up against the mountain. What you see are wedding photos and graduation photos and those sorts of things. It's a precious natural space in the original plan, but it does reduce some of the beauty from what we will see. Luxury is a term that we've heard to describe the mixed-use apartments. The existing approved plan, the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet with a maximum lot coverage of 50% and a maximum height of 20 feet. The north lot design includes 8-foot themed walls on major roadways and between 3 to 6 foot view fencing, depending on where you are on the plan. The proposed rezone reduces community luxury to an average of 1,000 square feet across 334 apartments. We've read in a posted article that the developer requires foot traffic to secure anchor and merchant stores. The 83rd Marketplace, which is just right across the street, submission to the city of Peoria denotes 70,000 residents within a 3-mile radius and 162,017 within 5 miles.
Ms. Howe, can you please limit your comments?
Excuse me?
Your time is up.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Can I finish, or do I just need to sit down? I don't know how this goes.
I need to hold it to 3 minutes. We've got 30 more after you. So in order to keep this meeting moving, we need to limit our comments to 3 minutes. That's posted in the meeting notice,
Sure.
and that's why I said that at the beginning.
Thank you. Just so you know that when I read the agenda, it showed each item individually. And so I interpret that as that we would speak about each item individually because of the way that the agenda was laid out. And so this is under 3 minutes in that kind of scenario. I think the last thing that I'll just share with you, because as somebody who lives in the area, is when I saw the sign, because that's really the big indicator, was the posting sign. So thank you for doing that. Zoning signs are helpful. I, in the last couple of days, knocked on 78 doors of my neighbors that live around my street, and I spoke to well over a third of them to understand my community's perspective. And all were opposed to the apartments, except one neighbor, who is a realtor, said that he didn't prefer the apartments, but it's livable if they're luxurious. And so most people didn't understand about the apartments, and the other expressed a lack of frustration on the rezoning because of things that we have existing, like a dark sky ordinance. And there were concerns over things you've heard tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Janelle Dabash?
Good evening, Commissioners. My address is 8223 West Bryden Lane. Again, my name's Janelle Dobash, and I live in Calileos Estates, which is the first subdivision south of Happy Valley and east of 83rd Avenue. So time's going. It's approximately a half a mile away from the project. I have lived there for 22 years. I have taken an interest in what would be built on all four corners. I had no notification or knowledge of a meeting last December regarding this property and the apartment complex, or I would have attended. I just found out about this meeting Tuesday on nextdoor.com. So you can imagine I'm that close, and I'm just finding this out. And I've taken an interest over the years. So there are lots of other people I suspect are the same. Several years ago, I read in detail about the initial Trailhead plan, which did not include an apartment complex, and I embraced it at that time. I knew it was inevitable that the four corners would be developed at some point, and I hoped that the development would be in tune with the demographics of the surrounding area, namely the elevated home values and annual incomes within a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius of that intersection. I am opposed to rezoning and an apartment complex at that location. I don't believe the apartment complex fits with the homes in the surrounding area. I often read about how the city, the zip code 85383 has the highest home values, and that's been a source of pride for Peoria. Again, I just don't feel that this apartment complex fits with the single-family homes that exist there with elevated values and elevated incomes. The single-family homes that were planned all along would be a much better fit. The developer, I noticed, like you said, he tried to say that the commercial aspect could not survive or exist without the multifamily, which I found interesting because this project had been planned for quite some time, and years ago, I pored over it in detail saw the commercial and the worship aspect and embraced it. And the multifamily was just added in December, from what I'm hearing. So obviously, they thought in the past that that commercial aspect could survive and make it without having the multifamily there. We have used our income and moved to this area because we love our neighborhoods, our area, and our neighbors. This apartment complex will take away from our enjoyment of our homes with the sheer volume of people and traffic being added by this complex. I personally would like homeowners in that space that plant roots and stay, rather than a transient community of apartment residents. The developer may state that they are luxury, high-end, et cetera. Actually, he said they were more mid-range, which if you look at all the home values and incomes in that area, they don't, to me, say mid-range. I don't want apartments, period, so it doesn't matter to me either way. I know that we need more housing. I realize that. I would say, is there a way that it could be put out at 303 and Lake Pleasant Parkway, where commuters could hop on that 303 and take it down to that new plant that's going in? That would be convenient. I know I've got to wrap this.
Thank you.
I've got to wrap this up. I would just like to say that I didn't get to touch on the aspect of, well, I listened to the developer for a long time, and I've lived very close to this for 22 years. If you would respectfully, give me another like 30 seconds to a minute, I'd really appreciate it.
It's about respect for everybody else in here.
Yeah, and I just want to say alcohol is going to be served, as we all know, on that southeast corner. There's a lot of restaurants planned that are having alcohol, and there will be more on the northeast corner. That's already a lot of traffic in that area, and to add that to the mix, it's going to be, I suspect, a very dangerous intersection. Okay, well, I guess I don't get to finish, but basically, I want to say, my husband and I grew up as we're rare Arizona natives. We grew up going to Lake Pleasant when it was a dirt road and still had the upper and lower lake. We've always welcomed growth when it is done appropriately. Putting an apartment complex in this area is a bad idea. In closing, please do not allow the change of zoning to allow for the proposed apartment complex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Tennyson?
Not my cam. Hi, Michelle Tennyson, 9046 West Bahada Road in West Wing. Thank you for the opportunity to address the chairman and the commission. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for 20 years. I know that Mr. Gilbert mentioned that, is that Paul, right? That there's a shortage of apartments. Well, let me tell you, there's been a shortage of houses. We have had the record low inventory for over 2 years now, and people trying to buy a home are just desperate because we just don't have the inventory. We're at somewhere between maybe a fourth of the normal inventory. So I would certainly encourage keeping the single-family homes versus the apartments. If density is an issue for the city, because I do realize that higher density means more revenue, then why not condos instead of apartments? So you have a stable population, you have the pride of home ownership. I would also suggest that you consider doing underground parking, whether it's condos or apartments, because all that asphalt is going to create a lot of heat, and there's also a lot of toxins that are released from the asphalt. So just something that you might consider. You talk about a diversity of housing. There's got to be a relationship between the cost of the land and the cost to build and what the rent will be. This is not a place for low-income housing. So please, if you're going to do anything at all, don't change the type of structures that you put in there, because that would certainly not be compatible with the rest of the community. And as far as the church sustainability is concerned, I welcome the concept of a church going in on that site. I mean, all you have to do is drive by either CCV or Copper Hills, which is right down the street from where I live. any day of the week, especially with Copper Hills, and the parking lots are always filled. So I think that you'll find that the community will embrace another church. As far as PAD exclusions, I'm sorry I didn't see that in the information that I received from Mr. Gleason, and I do appreciate what he provided me. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be some exclusions. I didn't hear the total list, but I certainly hope that you will exclude things like tattoo parlors, pawn shops, adult shops. We don't need another auto parts store or discount tire. And I really don't think we need another gas station. I understand that Safeway might want to have that, but that just, I mean, there's gas stations nearby. We really don't need another gas station. I think that could be better use for that land. And I guess just in closing, I was curious about the, I think it was the 270 or whatever, the, sorry, I had to change my whole speech, about 207 waiver, the Proposition 207 waiver. Does that mean there will not be any marijuana dispensaries included in this development? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Laura Basie.
My name is Laura Basie. I live at 8356 West Staghorn Road in West Wing, right at the top of that picture on the left, that is very close to where those apartments would be. I do have a problem with them. The original plan did not include them, and this is just something that is unacceptable. What I agree, I actually heard Michelle say, and I actually kind of like the idea, is condos. Why not condos where people have pride of ownership? It's a less transient community than an apartment complex would be. And the other thing that bothered me is when I saw pictures of what those apartments would look like, they look a lot like the ones being built by down by Sandra Day O'Connor, which I understand is the same developer. Those do not look like Kierland apartments. They are square block, no elevation that's any, it's not real pretty. It doesn't really, I didn't see it. I haven't seen much of anything that was presented here about what those apartments would look like. I understand the idea of having to pull together all this property. I think that's great that it's happening. I just object to the apartments. If we want high-end restaurants here, we have high-end homes in that neighborhood and all the surrounding neighborhoods that would support them. 336 apartments isn't going to change anything, and those people are not the kind of people who are going to be able to afford their rent and go spend money at a high-end restaurant. I just don't see it. So anyway, I object to the apartments. I love the rest of it, and thank you very much.
Next, we have Jeff DeWitt.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I live in West Wing myself, 8631 West Bryles Road. Not too far off that picture as well. I've been there since 2004, a long time. I am Jeff DeWitt is my name, former State Treasurer of Arizona, former Chairman of the State Board of Investment, and former member of the State Land Selection Board. And so I've looked at a lot of different projects over my career as well, and I understand also, Mr. Chairman, your desire, as well as I had, to protect the school money and the school trust and what goes into that. One unintended consequence I'll point out to you on that front is what will happen to the value of the land around that when this goes in, because you won't get high-end homes next to apartments, and so there's a balance and a trade-off of what's going to happen when they sell the land now to the rest of it. But one thing I'll say, I thought I was actually going to come and say that I live closer and longer than anybody, but I've already been, people have spoken who live closer than me. But I remember when Deer Valley and 83rd was a stop sign when I first started going out there. Mr. Commissioner, one of the things you brought up about how things have changed, if you remember when the Safeway was down at 83rd and Lake Pleasant, it's now a Goodwill. When the apartments went in, things went down, it was a Safeway, became a Goodwill. At 83rd and Deer Valley, northeast corner, Albertsons had a gas station attached to it that went out of business not that long ago. Now it's a salad and go. I don't know also any high-end restaurants are going to want to go next to a gas station. I think we have enough of those. So again, there's a lot of great things with this project. A lot of things are beautiful in this project. What's going to do the corner? I'm one of the people, I agree with the commercial. I think the commercial is going to be wonderful. I agree with high-end restaurants. I agree with the walk paths, the bike paths. I also like riding my bike. I agree with a lot of what's said here, and I agree with having a church there. I don't think there's enough churches, as many churches as we can get our hands on, in my opinion. However, one of the reasons I bought out there, I signed my contract to buy back in 2003. I also own commercial property. I've dealt with this, dealt with in the past with some of the people here on some commercial property I own in Peoria. One of the things I disagree with is having such high density there, and I really wish that the commission would review the density of that. I agree with the former speakers that instead of a rental community, I'd love to give pride of ownership, even on a lower income basis. With townhomes or something else, 2-story, something like Grandstone, if you remember Grandstone, south of the southeast corner at Happy Valley and Lake Pleasant, those are rental, but they're less density, they're still, and that pencils out. And so I think the most important thing that I'd bring up, a lot of people stood up that were here. I'll tell you, a lot of those people work for the developer, and some of the people I recognize that stood up, my kids go to school with them, and they live in Vistancia. So we have Vistancia people. I think you'll hear of the people that live right here are all highly concerned. And the reason is when we came out this way, we came out because it was all zoned single family. We wanted to be in a single family community, and we don't want things to change. And so I know a lot of the neighbors I talked to didn't think they'd even have to come or write a letter because they expect these things to be protected based on the promises that were made when they bought here. But I will offer my services. I have just a few seconds left. Offer my services free of charge. I've looked at a lot of pro formas for a lot of deals. I've done a lot of deals. I do believe the commercial and the worship absolutely can pencil out. I think one of the false things is to say the only way this works is with this high-density multifamily. I feel like that was an offer way up here expecting a counteroffer, but there was never a counteroffer by the city, and so they're going with what will make them the most money, of course. But there's absolutely ways to pencil this out, GPLP pro formas that will work, and I'll be happy to write those for you for free to show you how this does work with lower density or with townhomes where there's pride of ownership. But I agree with the commercial, I agree with the worship. I really hope this commission will keep the community. And again, it's not a NIMBY thing, it's just what we came for. We came out here because we wanted single-family homes and pride of ownership and have a community. And you're seeing a lot of people here saying this isn't what we signed up for. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, for the chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Nikki Holstein.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Nikki Holstein. As you said, I'm actually surprised I'm here at the beginning of 30 people, so thank you. I also live in West Wing. I'm a 19-year resident. Forgot my address. It's 8622 West Bryles. I also moved to West Wing for single-family homes. I know there's going to be change. I get that. I love the commercial. Commercial is absolutely fine. What I'm opposed to is the apartments. I really do not want to see the rezoning to have apartments. That's not something anywhere close to single-family residential. If I wanted to have apartments or be close to apartments, and I have lived in them, I'm sure almost everybody's lived in apartments at some time. Apartments themselves, not that they're not right for that area. I just can't see them there. So I really ask that you please consider not rezoning to have the multifamily. And the ones that I've seen on 35th and Happy Valley, I'm sorry, they are not great looking. They are, as Laura said, and I do agree with everybody else that's spoken so far, those do not fit in with what we have. Have you gone around West Wing, Rock Springs? Have you seen the elevations, the rock? We have rock on the houses. They don't look like that. They're square and boxy, and I'm sorry, they're ugly. So anyway, I'm opposed, as you can tell. Please reconsider not rezoning to multifamily. I'm happy to frequent the restaurants and even the church. In fact, I like to have the fact that I can walk from maybe the house, down there with my dogs. I think that's great. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Amy Sapp.
Hi, good evening. My name's Amy Sapp. I live at 9137 West White Feather Lane in West Wing. Thank you to the Commission and the city staff for allowing me to speak in support of the Trailhead tonight. I've been a resident of Peoria and West Wing for 14 years, and I support this project. I understand that we all love the desert, but this area is clearly exploding and growth is inevitable. I think we're well aware that this area will not remain open desert, and the biggest issue seems to be the apartments. I attended the community meeting where Peterson Group provided information and answered questions from community members. If others that are here tonight had attended that meeting, they would know that they're most likely not even going to see the apartments, as the plans have them set low behind the shopping plaza, which obviously that was discussed as well. The elitist attitude coming from certain community members toward those that live in apartments by choice or otherwise is absolutely appalling. Many of these people are young professionals that can't afford a house or are getting outbid in the current market. Where are they to go? Are you saying that because they can't buy a house, they need to look in a different part of town? Because that's what people are saying. So these people are saying on other things, go to this part of town, go to that part of town. That's terrible. That's absolutely awful. How many of you have lived in apartments at some point? I know I lived in one as a young working professional with a master's degree. And the reason I say that is so that others understand that not everyone who lives in an apartment is trashy or will bring down home values. Many of the same people that oppose the apartment seem to hide behind traffic concerns as their reason for not wanting the project to be approved. Yet if you read the comments of these individuals, they're the same people that state they're okay with the project as long as the site plan doesn't include apartments. I would gather that quite a few people would love to buy a single-family home, but with the prices and interest rates continuing to rise, it's just not an option. And as shocking as it may seem, there are actually people that choose to live in apartments because they don't want the upkeep of a home. If the rent is truly going to be somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 or whatever it's going to be a month, I don't think that's attracting riffraff that will increase crime. And I would bet most of you pay less than that on your mortgage for a 3,000 square foot home. So I ask you, are we really going to state that in order to enjoy this area, you have to be a homeowner? The good that this project will bring to our area far outweighs what is perceived as bad. Instead of fighting this, let's help make this something that's great for our community and allow others to see why we love calling North Peoria home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Matthew Rowe.
Thank you, Commission, for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Matthew Rowe. I live at 6862 West El Cortez Place. I've lived in Peoria for 15 years now. The total issue here is the concept of apartments. There's a building in this area, 60 feet tall. It's the equivalent of a 5-story building. It doesn't blend in at all with the surrounding, but it's appealing and high-end because on the side of the building it says Lifetime. Yet, people love it. People go there. The parking lot is always full every time I go by. And we're talking about a 35-foot apartment that's going to be sunken down as a major obstacle. Too much traffic and crime from the people who will live there. It's going to bring our property values down, they say. I'm fairly certain most of us lived in apartments at some point in our lives, and we weren't criminals. We did many of the same things we do today. And traffic, Alora Vita is still going to have 2,000 homes. There's traffic coming no matter what. It's inevitable. These apartments are going to cost more per month than many of us pay in our first mortgage payment, our mortgage payment today. And the reality is the housing shortage is crazy. And who are we to deny people different options as far as where they would choose to live? Income level doesn't define where you live. You have a choice. And we should give people a choice if they're willing to pay the price and be part of the community. So the concept to me of being able to go to a great dinner, bike, walk, I'm in Terramar. So it's a little bit poke. I'm not the most in shape person, but I'd love to be able to do that. And it would certainly be a selling point for your home in the future if people knew, oh, I could stroll over there for dinner and come on home. So that sounds pretty good. And there's going to be additional shopping options and grocery options. Sign me up for that. If you let the concept of apartments cloud your judgment, you miss out on the opportunity to have a wonderful and dynamic project become part of your community. If this fails, the land is still going to be developed. It's not a question of if, but when. And we'll get more auto parts stores, mattress stores, and dentists, and some more chain restaurants. and the reputation of the West Valley will continue to be reinforced yet again. We'll continue to be moaned that we have to go to Scottsdale and Phoenix for a night out, and we'll probably think of what could have been if we were willing to think outside the box. Let's face, let's think about the possibilities and not baseless rhetoric. And my ask is that the commission and citizens of the community who are here tonight realize the potential that this project has to change the narrative. And I would ask the commission to approve the zoning change, and let's move Peoria forward. Thank you.
Katie Rowe.
Hi there. My name's Katie Rowe. I live at 6862 West El Cortez Place in Peoria. I've been a resident of Peoria for 16 years. That's just in Terramar, about 2 miles away. Some of you may know me. I've been at meetings before. I run a group called Upper West Side PHX on Facebook and Instagram. We have close to 30,000 followers. The reason I'm telling you this is because we have put out 35 posts about the Trailhead in the 4 years that I've been doing this. So I have been Jim Peterson's probably biggest pain. I have asked every question that has been asked tonight. This is my backyard, okay? I started Upper West Side because I wanted good restaurants and things to do, right? So we saw what happened with 83 Marketplace that doesn't have an anchor tenant. We're still waiting for it to open, right? It doesn't have apartments next to it, so no guaranteed foot traffic. One thing I want to address that I don't think anyone has addressed tonight is the fact that they're saying this won't happen without the apartments, and that's true. I, for 4 years, have been fighting to get these top-tier restaurants here. We know how wonderful our community is. We have the numbers to back it up. We have the income. We have all of it. They don't want to come without guaranteed foot traffic. Can we support them? Absolutely. Can we support Fox Restaurants and Oso and Postino and everything else? Yes. They are not coming if you don't give them guaranteed foot traffic. It's that simple. If we don't approve this, the long-term implications on Peoria as a city are huge. If we say no to this, that we're not willing to have this great mixed-use development and move things forward, and we're for progress, then that tells the Sam Foxes and the Postinos and the everyone else that we want to come here, that we drive across the city for, that Peoria is not open to this, and we're about to get surpassed. They're going to go to Surprise, they're going to go to Glendale, and that the tax dollars are going to go there. We're going to be driving more. This is our chance. If we turn this down, if we shut this down, we will be known as the community that doesn't want progress. And I don't think that's what we want for our future. So if you look at the general plan and things going forward and mixed-use developments and Vistancia Commercial Core and all these things that have been in the plan for so long, they're not happening if this doesn't happen. The restaurants aren't coming. The shops aren't coming. I have talked to them directly. They're not coming. So I just want to thank Peterson for sticking with it, because for a while there, I was hounding them saying, what's going on, what's going on? And I've been bothering them to come back and to stick with it and to stick with us, because this is a difficult project to bring all this land together and all these owners. And I don't think there's anyone out there who can do it better than them, who has been more receptive to the community. And so I thank them for that, and they know that I am leading this fight, and if they don't follow through, I will be leading the fight if they bring me a Chili's. So I'll be leading the fight if they don't follow through on their promises. So thank you for your time.
Liz Walton.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a senior citizen who moved here 5 years ago from the Midwest. I live in Trilogy of Estancia, and I love that community. But as I move forward, I see myself living in an apartment simply because I don't want to take care of the property anymore. And this opportunity gives me an experience where I can live in an upscale apartment complex within walking distance of everything I need. That is such a plus for those of us who have had that experience in our former communities, not in this area. I love Trilogy. I think Estancia is a beautiful community, but there's not much out there for us. We like to go out to dinner. We like to shop, and we're tired of having to drive to Scottsdale to do it. This is an opportunity for this community to develop a master planned community that gives many people the opportunity, not just young people, not middle-aged, not professionals, retirees, senior citizens, those who want to come and live in that environment. So I really encourage you to take a look at it. Don't just focus on the schools and their needs, focus on the bigger community and what is available to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette Dalton.
Hi, my name is Annette Dalton, and I live at 9673 West Villa Chula in Peoria. I've been a Peoria resident for 2 years, but have been selling real estate here in the West Valley for 18 years. My phone is getting low on battery, so please stay with me. I am in support of the Trailhead tonight. I am the current state RRC president. I am a member of the board of directors for AAR. I support this project, and because I hope for Peoria to be an amazing place to live, work, shop, dine, and entertain. Oftentimes, we have to go across the valley to Scottsdale, Gilbert, Chandler for great restaurants and entertainment. I support the Trailhead project along with the apartments. I've seen the renderings, and they are beautiful, and they keep the aesthetics of the area. I appreciate they are only 3 levels. I understand the increased traffic. However, that will already be addressed and is happening with the Alora Vita project. Apartments do not affect the values of surrounding homes. Only the houses adjacent to or bordering those apartments will be affected by it. Much like a house that is on a major street, you can usually account for about a 5 to 10% decrease in value. And those people are going to see those apartments and know going in that they will be there. This project will already be established, so those homes that are going to go in there are already going to accept the fact that they have that decrease in value. They're going to see the savings on when they purchase, but know when they sell, they're going to have to take that little decrease in value. I've never had in 18 years have anybody get in my car and say, I'm going to drive around a mile radius to see if there's an apartment complex. I've never had that happen. The houses, like I said, the houses that are going to back that are going to love this location based on the walkability and the amenities that are there, that this development has for it. I welcome it. I welcome the dining area. With the housing market, and if it continues to rise as it is, there's no projection of it actually declining anytime soon. The single family, a lot of buyers are getting bought out of this market. They can't even afford it anymore. So I welcome these apartments that can be an interim living for them, and maybe when they're purchasing houses. And like the lady had mentioned, maybe the people that need housing after the fact, 1 to 2 bedrooms for when they simplify their life. So I have a family of 4. We have 6 cars. So these 1, 2, 3 bedroom units, you're not going to have me next door with 6 cars driving around. So the traffic won't be an issue. And I want my young adult children to have a place to live when the time is for them to get out of my house. So thank you.
Thank you. Glenna Hale. Thank you. Amy Malloy.
Hi, good evening. Amy Malloy, 13348 West Via Caballo Blanco, Peoria. I'm going to be brief because I appreciate and respect you guys being here so late, so I'm consolidating my comments as well. I am a Peoria resident. I'm a third-generation West Valley resident, proudly a third generation. My parents are both public servants, teachers and nurses. I started off myself working for a small city in Arizona in the city manager's office, and later in economic development before being hired by Westcor. And I had the advantage of working at Westcor for a decade and being able to work on regional shopping malls, the redevelopment of Kierland, Scottsdale Fashion Square, Biltmore Fashion Park, Arrowhead Town Center, and others. For the last 16 years that I have been doing commercial development, I've been striving to attract high-quality tenants and projects to the West Valley. I am extremely passionate about it. It's very difficult to do a first-in-class, ground-up commercial development. There's been a lot of discussions about the previous plan for the Trailhead years ago that did not include the multifamily. That project did not get built for a reason. There's also been comments tonight about the increase that we have a lot of retail activity, specifically at the Four Corners, Lake Pleasant, and Happy Valley. And that's great, but I, for one, don't want another Village Inn or a Chili's or any of the convenience kind of first-to-market restaurants that exist in that area. So for us to scale up for commercial development, the restaurants and retail at the caliber that the Trailhead is talking about, they have to have built-in markets. They have to have the foot traffic immediately available that a multifamily component will bring. That's why this specific piece was added to this plan, so that this plan before you, so we could actually be here tonight hoping that this thing might come to fruition. I just want to also draw attention to a couple other important aspects of this plan. The multifamily that you can see in the map in front of you serves as a critical land buffer between the noise, service, traffic in the back of house behind the Safeway and the restaurants and retail, and the future single-family residential. So whenever you're doing good land planning, you really want to make sure you think about those adjacent uses. And so as a future single-family residential owner for Alora Vita South, to back up against another residential use is a much more preferable ultimate plan than to back up to the back of retail servicing. I also want to talk a little bit about the cost of assembling these parcels. So the reason that this plan has all the components, it's a very intricate and thoughtful and time-consuming process that Peterson Group has gone through. And I've helped them do this. I've helped them work on this for years and years, so I am unfortunately intimately acquainted with it. So I just wanted to say, in conclusion, this is our chance for a high-quality, master-planned, mixed-use development to get us the Fox restaurants. We don't have to drive to Desert Ridge to go to Flower Child. For a place to strengthen property values, provide places for our families to enjoy together, for our teens to get jobs, for our retirees to have a lock-and-leave apartment, and for us to know that we've arrived in the Northwest Valley and we can all point to this as a point of pride. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brian Mortensen.
Hi, my name is Brian Mortensen. I live in the Sonoran Place development in the Vestance area. I know my home's not right across the street, but trust me, we have multifamily coming in Vestancia and already there. So I do see the concerns with that. However, I think one thing that has been mentioned is a lot of these nice restaurants that we all want here in the city, we've been waiting for years to get, is not only the guaranteed foot traffic, because they don't live in this area. They didn't take the chance in this area like Westside Concepts did, which has been a treasure to our Northwest Valley area, and we're so appreciative of them. But we also have to think about their workforce. And if there's not young working professionals here and people to work at the restaurants and be the servers that we need when we go out to eat, then it's just not going to happen. If they don't live here and they don't see a young demographic that can be their workforce, they're going to come out here. So I do support this project, and I think this is a great project, very well planned, And I'd rather take apartments with a nice retail component than just have apartments surrounded by other commercial. So I think maybe our efforts would be best maybe opposing other apartments that are planned, for example, in Tierra del Rio, where there is no commercial planned around the apartments they're trying to do there, and other areas like this. But this Happy Valley corridor is almost a freeway, essentially, in North Peoria, and the 303 development is just not happening right now. So if we want these nice developments with these nice shopping and restaurants that we want, we have to take what we can get, and right now it's Happy Valley and Lake Pleasant Parkway that are getting all the attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Galark.
I also, my name is Rachel hello, hi, my name is, I'm short. Hi, I'm Rachel Gallart. I live at 8371 West Desert Spoon Drive in West Wing. So I've thought this was a great project from the very beginning. I'm super, super busy, you guys. I've got 2 kids, a dog, a snake, a bird, 2 cats, and I run a marketing agency from my house. So I don't have a lot of time to get over here. It's really cool what you guys do. I thought this was a really good idea, but I don't have a lot of time to go into the deep, deep dive research. So I did what I do best, and I polled my neighbors. I only had a couple hours, you guys, today. So I just started door knocking. I'm like, am I the only one that wants this project? Like, what's going on? There was like a flyer on my car saying, you know, go to the city, tell them you don't want it. And I'm like, what? But we do want it. I'm like, is this what we're saying? It's interesting because I only got to about 15 houses today, but almost everybody was like, no, we want that. I'm like, you gotta show up tonight. They're like, well, I can't, I'm going to surgery tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sign the letter. Like, if you don't say anything, then nobody will know. But I thought it was interesting because my thought was, we do want this, but maybe I'm wrong. But from the small sample size I did today, I don't think I'm wrong. Like, everybody on my street was excited about it. A lot of people didn't know about it, though. That's it.
Thank you. Susan Nicholson.
Hello, thank you, Commissioners. Susan Nicholson, 6221 West Hedgehog Place, Phoenix. I am the Executive Vice President of We Serve. I am a broker and owner of a small real estate company that has been serving the Northwest Valley in real estate for 20 years. I'm also an Arizona Realtors Director and a National Association of Realtors Director. I want to talk to you about what's going on in our housing market. We need all types of housing to meet the population growth that we are facing in the Northwest Valley. High-end, luxury rentals, moderately priced? Yes, thank you. So much for that. That was beautiful ringing sound in my ears. Is a solution for many of the Peoria residents, because that's what I deal with day in and day out. I deal with your residents. Sometimes there's divorces. I can't tell you how desperate your constituency is to stay in Peoria Unified School District. They've already had their family torn apart. They just want to keep their kids in the same school. But affordability is a problem. Right now, within a 1-mile radius of where this project would go, there are 0 places for rent. Within a 2-mile radius today, there are 6, and the opening rent would be $2,700, which a newly single parent usually can't pull off. There's extraordinary job growth happening in the Northwest Valley. We all know about the Taiwanese semiconductor plant, and there are a bunch of ancillary businesses that are bringing in high-income jobs. Those people are going to come here and need a short-term landing place to decide where they're going to live. Some people are only going to be here on a short-term assignment as part of the startup team, and they also need a short-term place to live. There's going to be a lot of new houses that are coming in. Many times our clients will say, rather than replace the roof and redo the kitchen and do this, let's just go buy a new one, honey. Yeah, it takes a year right now to build a house. They don't have lathing. They don't have air conditioners. They don't have all these things because of the supply chain. And they need a place to live, or they can't sign the contract because the new home builders know the demand and they won't do a contingency. And so they need to sell their house and they need a place to rent. And guess what they want to do? They want to stay in Peoria Unified School District. They really like it. So the other thing that I like is smart growth for a city. I interview politicians every election year on behalf of the West and Southeast Realtors of the Valley. And we always say when they tell us all their hopes and dreams of what they're going to do for their community, we said, that's really great. How are you going to do that without raising property taxes? Because we're realtors, and we don't want it to be more expensive for somebody to be able to buy a house. And the answer that we are searching for is smart economic development, sales tax revenue, TPT, transaction privilege tax that you guys are going to be collecting. I'm a Phoenix resident. I'm on that line of Phoenix and Glendale and Peoria. You'll be getting my tax dollars. Sorry, Phoenix, I don't have to drive to Arcadia anymore to go out to a nice restaurant. So in closing, this is a smart project for Peoria, and my clients and your residents need it.
Thank you. John Irely. All right. Wow. Julie, I cannot read the last name, I'm sorry. Oh, it's Julie LaCroix. You need to work on your handwriting.
Julie LaCroix, 27969 North 92nd Ave in West Wing. Like the waste transfer station, I wanted to hate this project when it first came across my line of sight. And very much like the waste transfer station, when I actually went and took a look at it, I realized this is perfect. So I want to thank the Peterson Group and everybody in this room. My publication represents a voice to 7,500 affluent residents who want Peoria to be a lifestyle place, and that's exactly what this does. The other point I wanted to make was almost 40% of the healthcare jobs on the west side are, almost 38% of all of our healthcare jobs in the entire valley are here on the west side, yet 68% of west side residents drive east of I-17 for work every day. So a 336-unit apartment is going to allow us to defuse our workforce crisis, which is preventing people from living and working over here. So I want to thank you also for that. It has a lot more to do with attracting a young, vibrant workforce who can live here and work here. And then it does to just the restaurants. The restaurants are a key. We all want the restaurants. I think by now we've all understood that the restaurants are intertwined intricately with not just this particular development, but the level of luxury restaurant that we're really going after. So that is a key. But there's more to it on a broader scope about having a young workforce that's vibrant and available right here in Peoria, because the nicer higher-end stores and the manufacturing companies coming in, the chemical companies coming in. And personally, I'm looking to hire somebody who's a young professional with a college degree, and they probably will be living in that apartment complex someday. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Sean Holleran. Joey Lucidi.
Thanks, Commissioner. So I'm here as a resident of Peoria. I've been here since 08, 14 years. I'm in a unique situation where we are an employer of over 350, mostly millennials. And not to mention I have 4 kids that are growing up. And one thing I've always been talking to them about and asking them about is why the want and the need from them to be moving into apartments rather than buying homes. So many of my staff and so many people, millennials that I talk to, they're not interested in buying homes. And it's a big shift because 23 years ago when I moved into my first apartment, for me it was a stepping stone. I never wanted to be there. That's not the mentality of the younger generations coming up. They're looking to these as, this is where I want to be. For a while, if not forever. They're not looking at the same things that our generation and previous generations have looked for and almost adequated with success. And so as we grow in a city and try to attract a workforce that is beginner to moderate to growing into success, we have to attract these younger generations with what they want. And they're looking for communities like this. I don't need to touch on commercial or worship because I think that's all happening. I think I haven't heard any opposition to any of that whatsoever. But the multifamily, to me, is not there for affordability. It's there because there's a generation behind us that wants that. And so that's how our city's going to grow. If you look at Scottsdale, when they move into these apartments, some of them stay, and some of them move into houses, but they move into houses that are around that area because they're accustomed to it already. That's what I think this community needs, is not just an entry level, but a place for them to stay if they want to stay there, to that whole lifestyle. So, thanks.
Thank you, Joey. Rosie Walego? Okay, thank you. David Shelton.
My name is David Shelton. I live at 8132 West Hatfield Road here in Peoria. I am the HOA president of Calle Lejos Estates, which is the development just immediately south of Happy Valley and just east of 83rd Avenue. During the presentation, it was noted that all of the HOAs within 1 mile radius were notified. I was not notified. I've been the president of the HOA for several years. The only notification I did receive was as a homeowner. So I think there's a lot of good things in this development that have been brought out tonight. I would respectfully ask that the planning board put off making a decision tonight, and that the developer consider a larger or future meeting of homeowners to get a better voice of opinion. I know that the development at 83rd Marketplace, I was involved as the HOA president at that time with that development. We were all sold by the developer, but what we were sold and what we received were two totally different things. I'm not saying that will happen here, but I definitely would like to have that conversation with the developer. Thank you.
Thank you. After tonight's meeting, there will be further opportunities for public meetings with the City Council. Does anybody else wish to speak? Does the applicant wish to speak before we close the public meeting?
I think you've heard enough from me. We've been here long enough. I'll refrain.
Thank you. All right, we close the public comment. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Sorry, my screen's not working. Commissioner Fider, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. I've been on this Planning and Zoning Commission for 3 years, almost 3 years, and candidly, this is the closest project that's ever been to where myself and my family live. I love the cohesive nature of it. I think we have other retail immediately adjacent at 67th and Happy Valley that didn't have the same benefits, and I think a lot of people have commented, not here, but that it's a little choppy over at 67th and Happy Valley. I think this is a great opportunity to create a cohesive project and really create some experiential retail. My wife and I are like most. We drive to Scottsdale, North Phoenix, Arcadia for great restaurants. We want them here. So all I can say is, if we can be assured through the design review process that these apartments that people are concerned about are truly a quality project, I look forward to supporting this. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? I can't see speaker requests on my screen. Did any other commissioners request? Commissioner Waitman.
Thank you, Chair Alsop. I just want to thank all of the residents that came here and hang in here with us, right? It's been a little long-winded. I really do thank everyone, for sure some of the young professionals that came up and that spoke about the type of individuals that may live there. I grew up in apartments, and I understand that although it's progressive, my husband and I have the luxury of living in a home now. I understand that this is going to bring so much traction to our community. I believe that everything within this project is cohesive with one another. I always speak about this, being a millennial myself, that I wish that we had more places we could go hang out, right? Me and my husband can go for a happy hour or not have to go to Glendale and experience Westgate. So I just thank everyone, whether in opposition or being for this project, for coming out, but I definitely do understand that we are voting on a master plan. And what I want to stress is we're talking about a master plan. The disadvantages it would have to have so many different entities try to build out, I think it would put us at a disadvantage. I'm very excited to see the worship facility, right? Studying on my Master of Arts in Christian leadership myself now. So I think that all of the concerns have been addressed, and I definitely think that this is going to bring something wonderful to the city.
Any other commissioners?
Just
Commissioner Schaefer and then Commissioner Nelson.
I'll make it really quick because it's been late. Thank you, Chair. I want to echo what the commissioners have already said and what I said earlier. I want to personally thank the residents for showing up tonight and for writing letters, whether for and against. That just goes to show that you're passionate about where you live and that Peoria is a great place to live. And whether this passes or doesn't tonight, once again, I just want to thank you for your involvement. Peoria is a great place to live. We need to be involved and let our voices be heard, and so thank you.
Chairman? Yeah, I just want to echo that as well. Thank you all for being here. That's what I love about Peoria. We don't just sit by and let things happen. We get involved, we show up, we make our voice heard. So I applaud all of you for that. I love the project. I'm going to be supporting it. I think it makes sense. I like the buffer between the apartments and the homes. If that wasn't there, I would not be supporting it. I like the different elements of it. I love the commercial aspect of it. We need more of that. We need diversity of housing. My only complaint would be that these be more affordable. Not affordable housing, but more affordable. I know that's probably spitting into the wind there, but that would be I got a couple of young men who live with me who are growing up and becoming of the age where they need to be pushed out of the nest, and we're looking around and saying, where are they gonna go? And frankly, they can't live in Peoria. They can't live even Arizona. As we look around, the affordability is just not there like it used to be. It's great if you're a homeowner like I am, like all of you are, but if you're not, boy, that's some tough straits. So I appreciate that diversity of housing we're bringing to this part of the valley. I would like to ask if I could, Chairman, I don't know if you can indulge me on this. If you can't, that's fine. But I would love Paul to come up and speak a little bit to the point that was made about condos, townhouses versus apartments. It's something I meant to ask during the open hearing, and I didn't. Would you indulge and let him speak to that to see if that was a viable option?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Nelson. We did look at condos early on, and that just didn't fit. We spent a lot of time bringing this forward, and that just didn't fit our pro forma and what worked for our project. And that's basically why. The condos also, I'm always amused at that because condos probably are more rented than other single-family homes because a lot of people buy condos and then rent them out. So you wouldn't necessarily get rid of apartment dwellers even if you had a condo project. And I might add, and I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I did waive my rebuttal. So
you did.
The point was made earlier about the first project did not have apartments, and that is absolutely correct. It's also equally salient to notice that that project didn't make it and didn't get built. So we really do need the apartment complex. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for addressing that question. Thank you, Chairman, for indulging.
Any other commissioners? Thank you for the engagement, everybody. The quality of development in Peoria is better because we have such an engaged public. So I appreciate that regardless of the outcome tonight. Do we have a motion for item 3R?
Chairman, I'll make a motion for item 3R, Alora Vita Planned Area Development Amendment Z08-028.3 for approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, commissioners. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 4R.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve item 4R, the Trailhead Minor General Plan Amendment, GPA 17-04.
I second.
Thank you. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item 5R.
Mr. Chairman, out of consistency, I will make a motion to approve item 5R, the Trailhead Planned Area Development Z17-27.
Do you have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. We still have a couple items. If you could please step out in the foyer while we wrap up our meeting, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. If everybody could step out in the foyer, please. We still have one last item. You're welcome to stay and watch if you want. Thank you. Reports from staff.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you for lasting this long. I think this one's been one of our longest in a while. I will be brief on this. Reports from staff. First item is special events. April is both Earth Day and Arbor Day. So on the website, I have not captured the number of events, but we encourage our citizens to volunteer and become party for the planet in the various activities. Also wanted to note our utility box art wrap contest closes. That has been very popular, and so we are encouraging everybody to become involved on that one. We are back to in-person events, so the Dolly Sanchez Easter celebration, it is a little bit different this year, but it is on, and we do encourage folks to attend. And last, Peoria Recycles Day. This is the opportunity at the sports complex for e-recycling, so your electronics as well as shredding is available. So we do encourage attendance at that one, so please bring your items to recycle. Last item is upcoming commission meetings. April 21st is our next meeting. We do have a number of items scheduled in front of the commission. Regular time, location. One location change coming in May. That is because between May 5th and May 19th, there are a number of scheduling conflicts between graduations and everything in between. We are asking for a special meeting on May 12th, so we're going to be one and done. So please make a note on your calendars. We look forward to seeing you at one time in May we promise we'll be nicer if we can do it. So with that, Mr. Chair, that is reports from staff.
All right, thank you. And we just have one commission update from Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make this brief because it is late. Tonight, after tonight's meeting, I did inform Director Hawkes and Chair Alsop that I will be resigning from the commission. It has been an absolute honor and privilege to serve among these fine commissioners and staff. We have the absolute best staff of any city anywhere. But the reason for my resignation is this week, Councilmember Binsbacher resigned her seat to run for mayor in the Mesquite District, and I will be applying for the appointment and for the election of the Mesquite District City Council. So therefore, I am required by our city charter to resign from the commission. So I'm honored to serve with the commission and the staff, and hopefully if the council and the voting members of the Mesquite District give me the opportunity, I will work with the commission and the staff in a different position. So thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer just wanted to see this item at the next city council meeting. That's what he wanted. Thank you, Brad. We appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. I know your time was the shortest, one of two, the shortest, but we've appreciated your time here and wish you nothing but the most success at the next level, should it be your destiny. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further business, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.